Welcome back to the channel Silent Ruptor. Don't forget to subscribe the channel. With that in mind, let's start the video. I became immortal on mortal realm. Fang Wang squinted his eyes slightly, his right hand trembling slightly, and he thought to himself that the force and speed were impressive. He became even more curious about Zhou Shui's current level of cultivation. The forest was quiet, and heavy fog shrouded the area, with streams of sunlight filtering through gaps in the treetops, forming visible slanting beams of light. Zhou Shui led the way, with Fang Wang and Fang Hanyu at the rear, the group of 9 trekking on foot. They had been walking for nearly 2 days. The mountain paths within the forest were not easy to traverse, with many muddy spots along the way. Every so often, they would see snakes, rodents, and spiders, causing the Fang family disciples to be extremely tense. They took each step with great caution. It's hard to imagine that a cultivation sect is hidden within such deep mountains. Fang Hanyu remarked softly, as the Dachi kingdom's vast landscape was filled with countless uninhabited mountain ranges populated by wild beasts and thieves. Even a seasoned martial artist like him seldom set foot in such places. Fang Wang could sense the rich nature's spiritual energy in the area. The further forward they went, the denser the spiritual energy became, which made him look forward to the Great Abyss Gate even more. At that moment, cries rang out from ahead, sounding like a woman or perhaps a child, giving Fang Wang and the others goosebumps. However, seeing that Zhou Shui did not stop, they continued to follow. Fang Wang turned to look behind him. The fog was thick, rendering everything beyond 7 steps invisible. He had felt something following them ever since the crying began to echo from up ahead. Unalarmed, he continued walking with composure. Soon, the fog up ahead thinned and the terrain leveled out, revealing a woman sitting under an old tree. She wore plain clothes and looked disheveled, clearly a villager from the countryside. She held a child in her arms, sobbing softly. "Should we ask her what's wrong?" asked Fang Xin, the youngest of the group, 1 year younger than Fang Wang. She was frail, carrying 2 packs on her back, drenched in sweat. Another girl, Fang Ziqing, tugged at her, shaking her head in silence. All eyes turned to Zhou Shui. Throughout their journey, she had become their pillar of strength. After all, besides Zhou Shui teaching them the qi gathering technique, even Fang Wang, the strongest of them, deferred to her lead. Zhou Shui didn't stop. She walked straight towards the woman. The woman, hearing the footsteps, looked up at Zhou Shui with tear-stained and reddened eyes. She seemed to see a lifeline and reached out to Zhou Shui, crying out, "Miss, please save my child, he was bitten by a poisonous snake." Some of the Fang family disciples wanted to step forward to help, but then they saw a dagger slide out of the sleeve of Zhou Shui's right hand, which she swiftly gripped. The woman's face turned ashen at the sight of the dagger, and just as she was about to speak, Zhou Shui suddenly hurled the dagger straight at her head. Bang! The woman instantly turned into a puff of white smoke, through which the dagger pierced and lodged in the tree trunk. As the smoke dissipated, the clothes fell to the ground, revealing 2 weasels, one large, one small, that jumped up and landed on a distant tree. The Fang Residence's group watched with wide eyes. The woman had been a transformed weasel. Zhou Shui remained expressionless, her gaze fixed on the 2 weasels in the tree, her eyes indifferent. Impressive skills. You must be at least at the 5th level of the qi cultivation realm. Girl, if you want to join the Great Abyss Gate, why not go to Taiyuan City? The weasel spoke in the same voice as the woman before. Zhou Shui replied, "Taiyuan City is too far, and it's more convenient to visit the Great Abyss Gate directly. We are sincere in our desire to cultivate, and I hope you will not play with us any further." The weasel chuckled, humanely waved its paw as if to gesture for them to continue on their way. Zhou Shui looked back at the rest with a certain look, then continued to lead the way. As they passed under the tree where the weasels sat, everyone was nervous, fearing a sudden attack. After walking for a while, Zhou Shui finally spoke up to explain, those were spirit demons. The mountains around the Great Abyss Gate shelter many such creatures. Some are wild, others are raised by the sect's disciples. The ones near the edge are responsible for scaring off mortals who stray too close, giving rise to ghostly legends to keep people away. A young Fang family disciple couldn't help but ask, just to scare them off. They might also get eaten. While the Great Abyss Gate is considered righteous, there are gray areas between good and evil in the cultivation world. You must be cautious in your actions, Zhou Shui said with a smile that seemed rather sinister to the others. With that, Zhou Shui resumed leading the way. Fang Wang remained at the end of the group, but his attention was behind them. After passing the spirit demons, that feeling of being watched persisted, making him wary. Half a column of incense later, that feeling of being watched still lingered in Fang Wang's mind. No need to be nervous, he won't dare to make a move. A voice entered Fang Wang's ears, and he looked up towards Zhou Shui at the front, his expression perplexing. It seemed only he could hear Zhou Shui's voice, the others continued on without looking sideways or turning back. This is the sound transmission technique. Once inside the Great Abyss Gate, you will learn it too. The person following is likely related to the cultivator you killed. These past few days, I've been hiding in the deep forest, pretending to study the soul-burning banner, but in reality, I've been leaving traces for them to follow. Zhou Shui's voice came through again, causing Fang Wang to frown, not understanding her intentions. That fellow holds 2 magic artifacts, which means someone is backing him. I fear the Fang residents will face further danger, so I purposely led the person behind us here to investigate. As long as they know we're joining the Great Abyss Gate, they won't act rashly. However important that person may be, they are merely in the Qi cultivation realm, and offending a massive entity like the Great Abyss Gate for his sake is not worth it. So that was it. Fang Wang felt it made sense, but another question arose in his mind. Is the adversary so bold as to follow them here, not fearing discovery by the Great Abyss Gate? Zhou Shui stopped transmitting her voice, and Fang Wang did not let his guard down, remaining vigilant. It was not until evening that the feeling of being watched finally disappeared. It seemed the other party dared not to advance any further. In the woods, the group stopped by a small creek, where they had lit a fire. Fang Wang rested next to Zhou Shui, while the others also sat down together. Tomorrow, we will reach the valley town in front of the Great Abyss Gate. Let me tell you in advance that the Great Abyss Gate has 9 veins, and the entrance exam is estimated to take place in 6 to 7 days. With your talents, passing the examination won't be difficult, but I hope each of you will join a separate vein instead of sticking together, Zhou Shui said softly. Within the Fang residence, there were more people capable of cultivation than them. Zhou Shui had selected only the most exceptional group of disciples to come and establish a foothold first. Hearing that they would have to join a vein on their own, Fang Xin's face turned pale, and she became nervous, but the other teenagers and young adults were not intimidated, they felt mostly excitement. Zhou Shui glanced at Fang Wang and Fang Hanyu, saying, once you two enter the examination, you must not hold back. Show your talents as much as possible, as this will determine your treatment after you join the Great Abyss Gate. Those with ordinary talents will only become ordinary disciples, and it would take many years of hard work to get promoted. Especially you, Fang Wang, don't go playing any tricks like pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger at this time. Zhou Shui was very concerned about Fang Wang because this young man was too good at hiding his abilities. After her rebirth, she had come to understand that it was not only her, but the entire Fang residence, including Fang Wang's parents, who were unaware of Fang Wang's high martial skills. She had also wondered why she had never seen Fang Wang make a move in her past life. Later, she realized that on the night the clan was destroyed, she was powerless and had fled immediately, only catching a glimpse of the Qingyi Taoist. She had not seen many of the battles between Fang family disciples and the Qingyi Taoist. Without the sword control technique, even a strong Fang Wang would have died at the hands of the Qingyi Taoist. Fang Wang replied helplessly, I know. It made him seem as if he was muddling through life. Zhou Shui continued to give instructions. She did not explain the specifics of the examination, whether to temper them or for fear of being overheard by the high-ranked members of the Great Abyss Gate. The night passed without incident. As the moon set and the sun rose, with the first rays of morning light, Fang Wang and the others continued on their way. Along the way, they saw many wonders, such as spiders as large as human heads, man-eating trees waving their branches, wild goats with human-like faces, and black cats with 5 tails. According to Zhou Shui, these were the lowest level of magical creatures, not yet spirit demons with the ability to speak human language. Beyond magical creatures, they also saw many brightly colored flowers and fruits that looked extraordinary. However, after being warned by Zhou Shui about their deadly poison, they dared not touch them. Finally, after noon, they reached the valley that Zhou Shui had talked about. At the entrance of the valley stood a giant door with a signboard hanging above it. Taiyuan Town. Inside the valley, pavilions rose one after another, with smoke from kitchens curling upward, and the surrounding mountains were magnificent, which inexplicably reminded Fang Wang of Five Fingers Mountain, with Taiyuan Town trapped within. The mountain gate was unguarded, so Fang Wang and the others entered the town directly. The street ahead was busy with many people coming and going, all of whom looked extraordinary. Some even rode cranes into the sky, flying out of the town and quickly ascending the mountains, which caused the Fang family disciples to become excited and yearn for more. At this moment, they truly felt in touch with the path of cultivation. Along the way, Fang Wang also observed his surroundings. On both sides of the street were various shops, selling elixirs, magic artifacts, talisman paper, cultivation techniques, spells, and even treasures. Even though most shops were not crowded, they still displayed the rich atmosphere of the cultivation world. Zhou Shui led them to an inn to stay. After paying the innkeeper, a young server brought them upstairs. Apart from Fang Xin and Fang Ziqing, the rest had a room each. Tisk, the Great Abyss Gate even collects silver. Fang Wang mused to himself. Although he found it odd, seeing the amount of silver Zhou Shui paid, it seemed that even the Great Abyss Gate needed to engage in mundane affairs. Entering his own room and closing the door, Fang Wang approached the bed and started to tidy up briefly before sitting down to meditate. With 6 to 7 days remaining, he preferred not to wander aimlessly but to enhance his cultivation as much as possible. His Solaris scripture had reached great perfection, but spiritual power needed to be accumulated over time. Since Zhou Shui said not to hide his abilities, he was going to give it his all. Thus, Fang Wang remained isolated in his room, and other Fang family disciples didn't dare to disturb him. After 6 days, at the hour of C, bright daylight shone, and a bell tolled, echoing in the valley, deafening, awakening Fang Wang. Has it come? Fang Wang thought to himself, a smile appearing on his face. Last night, he had finally broken through to the 7th layer of the Qi cultivation realm. With the power of the great perfection in the Solaris scripture, it had taken him over a month to reach the 7th layer of Qi cultivation. If he had started from the 1st layer of the Solaris scripture, it was hard to imagine how much time it would take to reach this level. Hurry up and come out, the entrance exam is about to begin. Zhou Shui's voice came from outside the door, and Fang Wang picked up his treasured sword and stepped down from the bed. Since he had gathered qi and tempered his body, he did not need to wash or eat, so he did not need to prepare further. He also looked very clean and refreshed. After half a stick of incense's time, led by Zhou Shui, Fang Wang and the others left the inn to discover many people doing the same. The streets were also full of groups heading in the same direction. Fang Wang asked curiously, "You mentioned Taiyuan City before. What's the difference between Taiyuan City and Taiyuan Town?" Zhou Shui replied, "Taiyuan City is a city that the Great Abyss Gate opens to the entire cultivation world, while Taiyuan Town is a town of ordinary people cultivated by the Great Abyss Gate itself. The ordinary people living here are responsible for mining various resources for the disciples of the Great Abyss Gate. Those who come to Taiyuan Town almost all have a cultivation background, from cultivation families around the world. Without background and intelligence, this path wouldn't be discovered. To put it simply, in Taiyuan City, we compete with ordinary people, but here, we are competing against some families with a cultivation background. Of course, being assessed here brings more benefits. Compete with the great cultivation families. The disciples from the Fang residence were frightened, and even Fang Hanyu subconsciously tightened his grip on his sword sheath. Zhou Shui said no more, and took the lead onto the street, following the flow of people, with Fang Wang and others closely following her. Along the way, Fang Wang was sensing the energy of the people around him. Not everyone could hide their aura like Zhou Shui, and he felt quite a few fluctuations of spiritual power. Many people had cultivated spiritual power, including ordinary people like the Fang family disciple, so they did not stand out. It seemed that there were varying degrees of strength even among the so-called cultivation families. Perhaps having a cultivator among one's ancestors was enough to be considered one. As Fang Wang thought about this, he quickly noticed a figure whose spiritual power was extremely strong, nearly catching up to his own. The person was wearing a bamboo hat and black clothes, carrying a bookcase on his back, with a gourd hanging from his waist, a peculiar attire that drew the gazes of many. Taiyuan town had one main street that led straight to a large lake at the end. Surrounded by the high mountains and the town itself, the lake was over 100 zhong in diameter and the water was a greenish color. Under the sunlight, it shimmered brilliantly. There was a row of men and women on the lakeshore, wearing the same robes, all standing tall, the men handsome and the women beautiful, like descendants of immortals. They looked like Taiyuan sect disciples judging by their white robes outlined with black sleeves, shoulders, waistbands, and boots, embroidered with exquisite patterns. Zhou Shui stopped, and Fang Wang and the others stopped close to her, looking around to see that there were at least 500 people gathered, a number that was still growing. This caused Fang Wang to feel astonished. While living in Southern Hills City, he had been completely unaware of the existence of the cultivation world. Now, far from the secular world, there were so many people pursuing the path of immortality. Southern Hills City was one of the richest cities in Dachi, with many past martial arts masters. Fang Wang knew many of them, and yet he had never heard of cultivation. This showed how great the cognitive gap between immortals and mortals was. Zhou Shui remained silent, while the other people from the Fang residence whispered among themselves. Fang Hanyu looked around, seemingly calm, but Fang Wang noticed that the boy clenched tightly onto his sword sheath, obviously very nervous. After about half an hour, the gathering at the lakeside had surpassed 1,000, and even people appeared whose cultivation Fang Wang could not see through at all. Boom! The same bell from earlier rang out again, quieting everyone by the lake. Fang Wang focused his gaze and noticed a male disciple striking the bell. Despite being only the size of a palm and made of brass, a light tap with an iron pin produced an earth-shaking, forest-startling effect. Another male disciple stepped forward, appearing to be in his early 30s with a refined demeanor. I am a fifth lineage disciple of the Great Abyss Gate, Guan Linfang, and I will be overseeing the entrance examination today. The examination is divided into two parts. The first is to summon Spiri. One by one, you will come before me and place your hand on the spirit stone in my hand. Those who can make the spirit stone glow can immediately proceed to the next part. The second part is beyond me, over this lake and across that mountain. Follow the guidance of the cranes in the sky, and press forward. The road will be rough, and if you shout out loud that you give up, someone will save you. The further you travel, the higher your score. Remember, do not stray from the direction pointed by the cranes. Otherwise, should you die, it will be upon your own head. The disciple who identified himself as Guan Linfang spoke without arrogance, yet his words carried an indescribable oppressiveness. Fang Wang looked up and, sure enough, saw a crane circling above the mountain peak. Looking further, there were other cranes in the sky. From his angle, they formed a straight line. Looking at the large lake before them, the Fang family disciples felt panic setting in. Aside from Zhou Shui, Fang Wang, and Fang Hanyu. The others, although they practiced martial arts, had skills likened to a three-legged cat. How were they to cross this lake, let alone surpass that mountain which was at least 150 zhang high? Zhou Shui comforted them by saying, as long as you can make that spirit stone light up, that counts as being admitted. The second part is for those who have a foundation in cultivation to compete over. Upon hearing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Fang Hanyu looked at Fang Wang and asked, can your sword control technique fly over that mountain? Fang Wang raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile, why? Want me to carry you? At this, Fang Hanyu rolled her eyes and said impatiently, as if, I was just asking. I don't need your help, and don't you help anyone else either. Flying with someone using the sword control technique is sure to consume a great deal of spiritual power. You should strive to bring honor to the Fang residents as much as possible. Her words also served as a reminder to the other Fang family disciples. Fang Wang shook his head with a wry smile and said no more. Meanwhile, people had already started approaching Guan Linfang, and a long queue soon formed. Zhou Shui led the group to line up. Pass. Guan Linfang's voice rang out from ahead, and Fang Wang saw a man leap into the air. A flying sword flew out from the storage bag at his waist, expanded quickly, and landed beneath his feet, carrying him towards the horizon. This scene caused a stir among the onlookers, making them even more yearning for the Great Abyss Gate. A young man from the Fang residence named Fang Mo remarked, if one can master the sword control technique, couldn't they achieve the highest score? Zhou Shui glanced at him and said, it's not that simple. How do you know how long the journey is, and if there are any magical beasts or spirit demons obstructing the route in the sky? Upon hearing this, Fang Mo scratched his head and gave a sheepish smile. The first part of the assessment went quickly, with an average of 10 breaths per person. Fang Wang and his group were not too far back in the queue, so they patiently waited. Under Zhou Shui's arrangement, Fang Wang was to go first, and she would be last, making it easier to look after everyone else. This careful planning made Fang Wang doubt if she really was a demonic cultivator. Could a demonic cultivator become an immortal venerable? Could she be bluffing him? Fang Wang pondered in his heart, finding himself increasingly unable to see through Zhou Shui. Ever since acclimating to her rebirth, she had become unfathomable, like in the recent nights when he would hear the sound of her footsteps leaving, not knowing what she was up to. He had considered whether to fawn over Zhou Shui like a madman, in hopes of gaining more cultivation methods, but he quickly discarded the thought. Apart from the doubt whether Zhou Shui would fall for it, he also didn't want to demean himself. Moreover, he couldn't follow Zhou Shui's path completely. Since Zhou Shui had been reborn, it meant that she had failed in her previous life, and he must carve out an even stronger path for himself. Time raced by as Fang Wang was lost in thought. Gradually, it was his turn to undergo the assessment. He had noticed earlier that the light each person could evoke from the spirit stone varied, with more than half of them unable to make the spirit stone light up at all. Having cultivated spiritual power, he naturally wasn't worried, he was just curious about how bright the light he could evoke would be. He suspected that the brighter the light, the better the talent. He walked up to Guan Linfang, laying his right hand on the spirit stone in Guan's hand. A cool sensation penetrated his palm, followed by a sucking force tugging at the spiritual power within his body. He offered no resistance, and as the spiritual power entered the spirit stone, it burst into light. Pass. Guan Linfang spoke, his expression unchanged. Fang Wang was also slightly disappointed. The light was clearly brighter than that of those before him, but it didn't seem to indicate aptitude, maybe it was just related to cultivation level. Without dwelling on it, after giving Guan Linfang a fist salute, he walked toward the lake. With a leap, he jumped into the lake, treading on its surface and swiftly skimming away. This scene did not catch the attention of the Tai Yuan sect disciples, as others had done the same before, since not everyone knew the sword control technique. Guan Linfang called another disciple over to take his place, then turned to watch as Fang Wang's figure glided over the lake's surface like a swan goose, then stepped on the cliff face, climbing with ease as if on level ground. Fang Wang's performance lifted the spirits of Fang Hanyu and the others. No matter what, with Fang Wang there, the Fang residents wouldn't lose face. Even though they had no reputation here, there was still a hint of pride in their hearts. Impressive, Guan Linfang murmured to himself as he watched Fang Wang reach the summit, his eyes filled with appreciation. This group of disciples is extraordinary. There might emerge someone on the level of a single school senior disciple. Who knows who will seize that superior grade spiritual weapon and command the winds and clouds. Meanwhile, Fang Wang stood atop the mountain, the breeze fluttering his fitted white garb, with the locks of hair beside his temple flying backward, revealing his handsome face. Looking at the magnificent plains ahead, Fang Wang was awestruck by the scenery that unfolded behind the mountain, with 2 rows of towering mountains stretching to the horizon, and a vast plain between them as if cleaved by an immortal sword. Fang Wang did not have long to admire the view. He leapt down, the wind roaring past him as he plummeted, and just before hitting the ground, he drew his treasured sword, twisting in midair to stab it into the mountainside. As the sword blade cut through the rock and debris flew, his descent slowed significantly. The treasured sword he had spent a fortune on was deservedly hard. Less than 5 feet from the ground and nearly stopped, he immediately pushed off the cliff, pulling the sword blade free from the mountain, flipping in the air, and landing steadily on the grass. He sheathed his sword and ran in the direction pointed out by the crane in the sky. Although the sword control technique of great perfection could allow him to fly on this sword, it was a huge drain on energy. Since this wasn't a magic sword and couldn't channel spiritual power, only being enveloped and manipulated by it, he didn't plan to use it prematurely. He had a premonition that there might be a battle at the end of this road. If it were simply about who could run the furthest, it would be just a simple test of spiritual power. The Great Abyss Gate would not be so hasty. Fang Wang sprinted across the plains, employing the shadowless step with the support of spiritual power which consumed far less than flying on the sword. His speed surpassed that of a swift horse, and at first glance, it looked as if his feet barely touched the ground, people passing and grass flying. Before long, Fang Wang saw 2 figures. They were fighting near the mountain wall ahead on the left side, their movements extremely agile, one wielding a scimitar slashing out like lightning, the other holding a folded fan, unleashing fiery winds that set the grass in a 10-foot radius ablaze. Fang Wang took only a quick glance, without stopping. Indeed, such a lengthy path for an assessment surely wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. A whoosh cut through the air above Fang Wang's head. He looked up to find a woman in yellow, wearing a bamboo hat and a white veil, with 3 scabbards on her back, the outfit of a wandering heroine. Most crucially, instead of flying on a sword, she was riding on a bright red gourd. That was too. Fang Wang envied her. That was definitely a magic artifact, and her cultivation level must be quite high, probably in the 8th or 9th layer of the Qi cultivation realm. After just a few glances, he continued at speed on his way, in no rush to catch up. In the sky, Ji Yu Li stood atop her precious gourd, gazing into the distance with a distracted look. Even behind the veil, her eyes were capable of sparking wild thoughts. Suddenly, she seemed to perceive something, turning her head to see a man in black, also wearing a bamboo hat, approaching quickly on a flying sword. He soon passed by her at amazing speed. Qi cultivation realm, layer 9. It looks like father was right, the Great Abyss Gate is on the rise. But I have no intention of losing to my peers. Ji Yu Li snorted coldly and began to accelerate. Across the plains, Fang Wang kept to his own pace, having been overtaken by 7 people so far, yet he wasn't in a hurry. He even wanted to see if Zhou Shui could catch up. Among the remaining 8 from the Fang residence, he estimated that only Zhou Shui could catch up. Although Fang Hanyu had cultivated spiritual power, he was still merely a martial artist, and climbing over that high mountain alone would be enough to stump him, let alone catching up to this point. As Zhou Shui had said, the assessment here was aimed at those with a certain foundation in cultivation, it was not for ordinary people to mix in. Time continued to pass. Half an hour later, Fang Wang saw a majestic fog arise on the horizon, with vague outlines of mountain ranges visible, imposing and mysterious. In front of these ranges, the high mountains on either side of the plains simply didn't compare. At first glance, Fang Wang thought of the Great Abyss Gate. Could it be that the area ahead was the land of the Great Abyss Gate sect? Fang Wang thought with anticipation. Soon, he saw many people stopped in front of a cliff. As he was about to stop, he heard someone shout, "I give up." As the words fell, a streak of green light descended from the sky, brushed past the person, a thread of green light split off, wrapped around the person, and took him soaring away, rapidly vanishing into the thick fog in front of the cliff. Was that a magic artifact? Even with Fang Wang's eyesight, he couldn't see what it actually was. Fang Wang went to a deserted spot, stood at the edge of the cliff and looked down. It was bottomless and pitch black below, while the sides were shrouded in heavy fog. He looked up, estimating that to reach the mountains behind the fog it would be at least 10 miles away. He must fly over. Fang Wang turned his head to look around. Some people who had previously used sword control technique were now at a loss as well. Judging by their weary looks, their spiritual power was probably depleted, some even sat down on the spot, taking elixirs. Was this also possible? Fang Wang wasn't unconvinced, but he marveled inwardly at the difference of those from prominent families. "What are you looking at? Has your spiritual power run out?" A familiar voice came from behind him, and Fang Wang turned to see Zhou Shui landing in front of him on a flying sword. Fang Wang was curious. Where did this flying sword come from? Zhou Shui didn't jump down from the flying sword but instead waved her hand. A slender flying sword flew out from her storage bag, and Fang Wang reached out to catch it. As soon as he gripped the sword, he could feel the spiritual power within. This was no ordinary sword, it was a magic sword. Fang Wang looked at Zhou Shui in surprise and asked, "Where did you get this?" Zhou Shui's lips curved upward, and she waved her hand dismissively, turned, and flew away, disappearing into the fog in the blink of an eye. Fang Wang thought back to the earlier exchange of blows between two figures. Could Zhou Shui have stolen it? Indeed, such an action was very much in keeping with a demonic cultivator. Fang Wang didn't dwell on it any further and directly connected his spiritual power with the sword. Then, he leapt up, the flying sword landing beneath his feet, carrying him into the fog. The sword control technique of the great perfection allowed him to easily control the sword. Of course, it was also because this sword was not too powerful an artifact. According to Zhou Shui, powerful artifacts were difficult to subdue, and cultivators needed to cultivate their life spirit treasure to manipulate them well. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the strong wind whistled past his face, and Fang Wang smiled. Sword flight was indeed supreme. With his feet on the flying sword and facing the wind, his spirits were lifted, standing proudly in the firmament. A bold spirit welled up in his chest. No wonder people sought the path of cultivation. Entering the fog, Fang Wang suddenly heard some unusual noises and immediately drew the treasured sword from his waist. A black hawk suddenly pounced out, its claws fiercely aiming for him at a speed surpassing that of the top martial artists of the pugilistic world. Fang Wang raised his hand and slashed, his spiritual power condensing into sword chi and slicing the hawk down. The black hawk turned into smoke and dissipated, causing Fang Wang to raise an eyebrow. It wasn't a living creature. It seemed it was part of the assessment. Fang Wang continued to control his flying sword forward while keeping a vigilant defense. Black hawks emerged now and then from various directions as he went, each one smoothly dealt with by him. It wasn't too difficult. As he journeyed forward and passed through the heavy fog, he beheld a majestic range of mountains that seemed to stand upon the clouds. Peaks rose behind the mountain range, the tallest reaching into the clouds, too high for him to gauge. Above Fang Wang's head, a line of white cranes showed the way. Following them, he landed on a vast open space where Zhou Shui was already waiting. After landing, Fang Wang gripped the flying sword in his hand and scanned the area. Aside from the Tai Yuan sect disciples guarding the front, there were a total of 16 examinees present, each of them looking formidable. Ji Yu Li glanced at Fang Wang and didn't pay much attention. She remembered this boy, who had run on foot. It was clear his family was not very rich, at least not a threat to her next objectives. Zhou Shui walked next to Fang Wang and exclaimed, "So quick, I thought you'd need some time to get used to it." Fang Wang smiled and replied, "It did take a little time." The two of them stood together, conversing in hushed tones, while the others dispersed, not approaching each other. Time kept flowing. Cultivators, one after another, crossed the fog and landed on this open space. Fang Wang noticed that even the weakest among them carried the aura of at least the 5th level of the Qi cultivation realm, which left him with profound reflections. No wonder the treatment here is greater, they are all top students. An hour later, the number of entry-level disciples at this location had already surpassed 50, astonishment filled Fang Wang's heart. Just in this place, there are 50 people, plus those who passed earlier. At least 500 people passed the entrance assessment, and this is only in Taiyuan town. How much larger must the number of disciples recruited by Taiyuan City be? Thousands every 5 years. This is why I chose Great Abyss Gate. 100 years from now, Great Abyss Gate will become the strongest sect in Dachi. Zhou Shui's voice reached him, employing the sound transmission technique, prompting Fang Wang to unavoidably turn his head to look at her. The strongest sect. Fang Wang believed her. After all, Zhou Shui was a reborn individual, and he looked forward even more to his own cultivation years at Great Abyss Gate. Some time passed, and suddenly a white crane descended from the sky. Lying on the back of the crane was unexpectedly a short, chubby old man. Fang Wang had noticed the white crane before but did not see that there was a person on its back. As the white crane landed, the short, chubby old man slowly sat up. Though he was dressed in the Dao robe of Great Abyss Gate, he looked out of place and sloppy with no air of immortality. Upon seeing the other man's demeanor, Fang Wang instantly labeled him as a highly skilled individual in his heart. This person must be very powerful. The short, chubby old man stroked his beard, scanning all those present before smiling and saying, not bad, a total of 52 people. It looks like my Great Abyss Gate is on the rise. You have the potential to become branch disciples of Great Abyss Gate just by making it here. Within Great Abyss Gate, status and treatment are divided from low to high into outer sect disciples, inner sect disciples, branch disciples, sword-bearing disciples, and direct disciple. Outer sect disciples and inner sect disciples can also choose a lineage to cultivate in, starting as servants, while branch disciples can directly choose a master on the peak of your chosen lineage. Everyone listened intently, making the short, chubby elder smile with satisfaction. Let me introduce myself. I am a revered elder of a lineage, you can call me Greedy Sleeper. Don't laugh at my name, in the world of cultivation, it carries quite a reputation, said the short, chubby old man, also known as Greedy Sleeper, with a proud laugh. A young man in blue clothes showed respect and admiration as he bowed and said, I have indeed heard of the illustrious Greedy Sleeper. It is said that, 100 years ago in the great war between good and evil, you single-handedly, with one sword, entered ancient Demon Mountain and slew over 1,000 demon heads. That battle significantly weakened the morale of the demonic path and allowed peace to arrive early. On hearing this, Greedy Sleeper couldn't help but raise his chin high with an air of superiority. Ji Yu Li glanced at the young man in blue, and though her face was covered by a veil, a clear look of disdain was evident in her eyes. Most people looked on with faces full of admiration. It was clearly the first time they had heard this legend. Fang Wang thought to himself that this indeed seemed to be a highly skilled individual. Probably one of the top figures in Great Abyss Gate. He may appear casual and sloppy, but he must be very fierce when it matters. All right, back to the matter at hand. You have already become branch disciples, and now you can compete for sword-bearing disciple and direct disciple. Greedy Sleeper cleared his throat and said with a serious tone. A woman couldn't help but ask, can we directly compete to become a direct disciple? Such a precedent doesn't exist among the 9 great sects. The other scions of great families all murmured in low voices, appearing excited. Greedy Sleeper said proudly, that used to be the case, but from now on it's different. Great Abyss Gate is breaking old conventions to better assist geniuses in their growth. All of you are within the chi cultivation realm, and you can contend for it now. Those who wish to become a direct disciple can step forward and battle all others. If you win, you will become a direct disciple, and the 5 best performers can become sword-bearing disciples. Contend against everyone. Upon these words, everyone fell silent. Fang Wang instinctively glanced at Zhou Shui, asking with his eyes if she intended to compete. Zhou Shui slowly nodded her head, but there was a slight frown on her brow, clearly caught off guard. Could it be that this person was not a disciple of Great Abyss Gate in her previous life? Fang Wang couldn't help but mock in his heart. He started to doubt Zhou Shui's intentions toward Great Abyss Gate. Ji Yu Li spoke up, may I ask the elder, if there is more than one person who wants to become a direct disciple, who will contend against everyone? This question prompted nods from a dozen or so people, all of whom were full of confidence. Greedy Sleeper smiled cryptically and said, that depends on you. A direct disciple also has the authority to enforce laws and manage disciples within the same lineage, so you must have the ability to command respect. Ji Yu Li immediately stepped forward and declared, my name is Ji Yu Li, from the Luo Bei Ji Yu family. I have been cultivating for 12 years and have reached the 9th level of the Qi cultivation realm. I have learned the 5 sacred sword technique from my father Ji Yu Tianshang, and I wish to become a direct disciple. Who disagrees? The Luo Bei Ji Yu family. Most people present were moved, making Fang Wang curious about the strength of Luo Bei Ji Yu family. The man wearing a bamboo hat, with his arms folded across his chest, hummed, the Luo Bei Ji Yu family is indeed qualified. Let's give you this opportunity, and I am interested to see if your 5 sacred sword technique can overpower all adversaries of the same realm. With that, no one dared to stand up. Fang Wang inwardly sighed, wondering when the Fang family from Southern Hills would have such influence. Hurry up, the benefits of being a direct disciple are beyond your imagination. My physical talents do not match yours, I have many chances to fight for, but it's different for you. Your path to cultivation cannot always rely on me, unless you also want to become a demonic cultivator. As for the Luo Bei Ji Yu family, they will be wiped out in no more than 20 years and won't threaten you. Zhou Shui's transmitted message arrived. Fang Wang had been prepared for a long time, he would have stood up even without Zhou Shui's urging, but her words lifted some of his burden. He thought it over, then Fang Wang stood up and said, I disagree. Instantly, all eyes landed on him, causing his heart to skip a beat, but he still pretended to be composed and looked steadily at Ji Yu Li. Who are you? Ji Yu Li stared at Fang Wang, her delicate brows tightly knit as she sized him up. Anyone daring to step forward at this moment must be extraordinary. Could she have underestimated him, and this youth actually had a significant background? Everyone scrutinized Fang Wang, including the Greedy Sleeper. Fang Wang said calmly, my name is Fang Wang. How about we have a friendly contest first? The winner will have the right to challenge everyone else alone. What do you say? As soon as he spoke, some people began to hoot. Everyone present came from a cultivation family and, although they hesitated to take the initiative, they were excited to see someone challenging Ji Yu Li's authority. Most people were wary of the reputation of the Luo Bei Ji Yu family, but the rest were merely cautious, fearing that they might not even qualify to be a sword-carrying disciple if they contested for a direct disciple position too rashly, potentially being overwhelmed before they could display their strength in the face of a 51-person siege. The Greedy Sleeper stood by, twirling his beard with a look of enjoyment on his face. He showed no sign of intervening. Ji Yuli stepped forward, pulling a thin sword from behind her back with 2 fingers wide and 4 feet long, the blade gleaming with a cold light. Then let's give it a try, Ji Yuli said firmly, raising her sword toward Fang Wang. Fang Wang raised his right arm and lifted the flying sword in his hand, but he quickly released it, and the flying sword hovered in midair. Ji Yuli narrowed her eyes and immediately swung her sword, unleashing a slash with powerful, unstoppable sword chi, stirring up clouds of dust as it advanced toward Fang Wang. With a swift wave of his right hand, Fang Wang's flying sword erupted with terrifying speed, a cold gleam that tore through the approaching sword chi and dispelled the turbulent air, stopping inches from Ji Yuli's forehead in virtually no time. The blast of the sword wind blew off Ji Yuli's bamboo hat, tearing away her veil as well, revealing a stunningly beautiful face, which at the moment wore an expression of shock. Looking at the flying sword suspended before her face, Ji Yuli stiffened, her pupils reflecting the tip of the sword like twinkling stars emitting a cold light, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Everyone was startled, including Zhou Shui, who couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. It seems I was right about him, but this kid's sword control technique. Based on Fang Wang's performance that night, Zhou Shui felt that his real strength was not limited to what his cultivation level showed, which was why she had pushed him forward. Fang Wang's mastery of the sword control technique was a pleasant surprise to her. That speed was something even some cultivators in the soul sculpting realm might not achieve. Indeed, back then Fang Wang used an ordinary sword, but now he had a magic sword in his hand. However, this magic sword was of the most common variety, yet he managed to wield such power with it. Just how high was this kid's potential? The greedy sleeper was also shocked, staring intensely at Fang Wang, his eyes practically shining. What domineering control, such fierce speed, to be able to stop instantly, even I almost didn't react in time. The greedy sleeper was inwardly alarmed, thinking that if Ji Yuli died here, it would cause great trouble. The Luo Bei Ji Yu family was not one to be provoked lightly. He had to stay alert, watching Fang Wang closely, fearing the young man might strike too hard. The Tai Yuan sect disciples behind him all wore expressions as if they had seen a ghost. Was this kid really in the Qi cultivation realm? Fang Wang did not look at Ji Yuli, but scanned the others and asked, "I'm here to be a candidate for direct disciple, does anyone object?" No one dared to respond, all looking at him as if facing a formidable enemy, even silently taking out their magic artifacts. Zhou Shui's lips curved into a small smile, thinking to herself, this kid's tenacity is impressive. He seems reserved usually, yet he has such presence in a moment of contention. What heights could he have reached in his previous life if he hadn't died on the night of the massacre? As she thought, she also took out a magic artifact, which was the yellow talisman previously used by the Qingyi Taoist. Fang Wang caught sight of this action and his heart skipped a beat. "You're not going to get serious, are you? Hey, we're on the same side." Fang Wang's right hand made an inward twist, and the flying sword that hovered in front of Ji Yuli's forehead sharply retracted, landing back into the palm of his hand. Ji Yuli's heart pounded like a drum as she looked at Fang Wang, seeming dazed. At that moment, she felt the presence of death. Had he wanted to kill her, she would undoubtedly not have been able to dodge it. Why was the gap between them so large? She hadn't even had the chance to use her 5 sacred sword technique. At that moment, she recalled her father's words, the Tai Yuan sect has the potential for greatness, and exceptional individuals are bound to emerge. Once there, you must not be careless. Fang Wang paid no attention to Ji Yuli's thoughts. Seeing the others shifting their positions to encircle him, he knew that relying solely on the sword control technique was insufficient for the current situation. Deciding this, he stabbed the flying sword he held into the ground and faced the encirclement empty-handed. Madness. This was the sentiment shared by all. Just as someone was about to lose patience, Fang Wang raised his right hand, palm facing downward. Boom! A domineering aura burst forth from Fang Wang, dust swirling from beneath his feet. Behind his head, 3 fireballs materialized, resembling miniature suns, as his robes billowed and his expression turned stern. How is this possible? The faces of both the greedy sleeper and Zhou Shui showed astonishment, the former pleasantly surprised, the latter purely shocked. Solaris scripture. Zhou Shui's claim that she had not mastered it before ascending was a bluff to intimidate Feng Wang, when in fact she had cultivated the Solaris scripture to the 6th level, only to give it up later due to other reasons. Just at the 6th level, it took her decades. How long has Feng Wang been cultivating? Looking at the 3 flames behind Feng Wang's head, it was clear that he hadn't just mastered the 1st level. She suddenly suspected that Feng Wang might have reached the 7th level, which she had not attained. No wonder this kid's cultivation has grown so rapidly. He has even progressed the Solaris scripture to such an extent, and it's only been a little over a month. Such a genius was actually born in Dachi. Zhou Shui suddenly felt the power of destiny. Perhaps an unseen force was influencing the destiny of the Fang family. In this life, since Feng Wang survived, the times were about to change. Although Zhou Shui found it unbelievable, it was not beyond her acceptance. After all, she had ascended and had seen even more monstrous beings. Attack! The man in black clothes wearing a bamboo hat took the lead. As he spoke, he fiercely slapped the ground. The book trunk on his back opened, and a hail of black arrows shot towards Feng Wang. The others immediately deployed their spells, all opting for long-range attacks. Even Zhou Shui made her move, her yellow talisman bursting into dozens of golden beams of light. In an instant, multicolored lights enveloped Feng Wang. Feng Wang's eyes narrowed, and with a fierce clench of his right fist, the 3 fireballs behind him burst open, transforming into a roaring sea of flames that swept away, scattering the incoming spells and magic artifacts from all directions with a spectacular firewall. The next second, Feng Wang, utilizing Shadowless Step, broke out of the encirclement. As a 9th-level Great Perfection practitioner of the Solaris scripture, he no longer feared any flames. In just 3 steps, he reached a cultivator. He struck with his palm as quickly as the wind and with the momentum of thunder. Bang! The cultivator was directly sent flying, vomiting blood in midair. Feng Wang turned around with a sweeping kick aimed at the female cultivator beside him. He wasn't just a cultivator, but also a martial artist. His physical body reaction was extremely fast. With spiritual power condensed on his right leg, he kicked her directly in the face, causing her to faint on the spot. He continued his onslaught towards the next person. He had to defeat all his opponents in the shortest time possible because his spiritual power was limited and he couldn't maintain such intensity for long. The Solaris spiritual power of the Solaris scripture was extremely domineering. Feng Wang used the Solaris spiritual power to execute the true dragon palm, not producing a dragon-shaped true chi, but rather a magnificent fire dragon that rampaged forth, crushing several cultivators. The man in black with the bamboo hat attempted to sneak attack Feng Wang from behind, hoping to catch him off guard. However, Feng Wang dodged with the Shadowless Step, causing the man's staff to hit nothing. Feng Wang turned around and hit him with a true dragon palm. Although he dodged, the cultivators behind him had no such luck. Several more were sent flying, their bodies ablaze. The Tai Yuan sect disciples watching the battle lent a hand to rescue these flaming new disciples. To their horror, they found the fire difficult to extinguish, forcing them to use spells. Fortunately, the flames suddenly disappeared, allowing them to breathe a sigh of relief. That was Feng Wang's doing. As a 9th-level Great Perfection master of the Solaris scripture, he could control the Solaris true fire to its utmost limits. He was also wary of burning these people to death. In less than 10 breaths, already half of the participants had lost their ability to fight. The remaining cultivators all leapt back, not daring to let him get close. Feng Wang was swift like an arrow, continuously seeking targets. His true dragon palm was too overwhelming, no one could withstand its edge. When Zhou Shui appeared in front of him, Feng Wang did not hold back. The two acted as if they didn't know each other. Zhou Shui actually exchanged palms with him. Boom! Upon their palms meeting, a fierce wind arose. Fang Wang frowned. He felt a sinister spiritual power that was like a venomous snake trying to erode his Solaris spiritual power. Thankfully, his Solaris spiritual power was strong enough. Greedy Sleeper could not help but look toward Zhou Shui, his eyes lighting up as he thought to himself that here was another genius. He immediately counted Zhou Shui among the sword-wielding disciples. No sooner had this thought crossed his mind than Zhou Shui was sent flying, vomiting blood and falling several meters away, struggling to get up after several attempts. Fang Wang truly admired her. Her acting skills were naturally flawless. From that exchange of palms, he could almost be certain that Zhou Shui was not weaker than him. On reflection, it made sense. Zhou Shui couldn't possibly have passed on her strongest cultivation technique to him, and if he were in her position, he wouldn't cultivate someone stronger than himself, either. One might care for one's kin but merely seeking their betterment, not going all out to the point of losing control over their growth. With Zhou Shui defeated, the rest were no match for him. The majority were in the Qi cultivation realm between the 5th and 8th levels. Only 3 people had reached the 9th level of the Qi cultivation realm, including Ji Yu Li and the black-clothed man. Soon, only the black-clothed man was left fighting against Fang Wang. The man's agility was extraordinary, making it difficult for Fang Wang to hit him for a while. The black-clothed man felt the same, even more frustrated. His spells dissipated upon approaching Fang Wang, neutralized by the fireballs behind Fang Wang's head, ineffective. After a dozen or so exchanges, Fang Wang's true dragon palm struck from a tricky angle, catching the black-clothed man off guard, who instinctively countered with a palm. With that exchange, he was defeated. Falling to the ground, the black-clothed person clutched his chest, coughing up a mouthful of blood, losing the ability to fight. Fang Wang turned to look at Ji Yu Li, who had not made a move and was watching from a distance. Feeling his gaze, she shook her head slightly, indicating her surrender. Good, very good. Greedy Sleeper laughed aloud, shouting, Fang Wang, you are promoted to a direct disciple, the first in the history of the Great Abyss Gate to achieve this from day one. His voice echoed under the firmament, and the Tai Yuan sect disciples watching the battle looked at Fang Wang with complex gazes. The Great Abyss Gate valued not only the talent for cultivation but also for combat, and these two were often inseparable. Greedy Sleeper was already looking forward to what rank the soul spirit Fang Wang would produce after the spiritual refinement, wondering if he could catch up with that kid. Direct disciple. Hearing the words of Greedy Sleeper, Fang Wang secretly let out a sigh of relief. He seemed to have dominantly ended the battle, yet after the chaotic fight, 80% of his spiritual power had been depleted. He had only pretended to remain calm and untroubled. The cultivators who had not yet fainted looked at Fang Wang with mixed emotions, all of them feeling a complex mixture of feelings. They couldn't believe that someone had managed to fight against 51 individuals on his own, especially considering the small gap in their realms and that they all hailed from families of the cultivation world. Fang Wang, why haven't I heard of him before? The Fang family is incredible, but I don't know from which place this Fang family hails. So strong, to become a direct disciple upon entering. I'm thoroughly convinced. I couldn't even block one of his moves. His flames could burn us to death. He obviously held back. Almost everyone was utterly convinced by their defeat, only having realized the terror of Solaris' spiritual power after fighting with Fang Wang. They even felt that they weren't fighting a Qi cultivation realm cultivator, but a soul sculpting realm expert. Ji Yu Li looked at the tall and upright figure of Fang Wang and, for the first time, felt quite ordinary, realizing why her father wanted her to join the Great Abyss Gate. If she had stayed within her family, she would have continued to believe herself an unparalleled genius in this world. Just then, a figure descended from the sky as if an immortal had descended from the heavens. He was dressed in a Great Abyss Gate Dao robe, elegant and graceful despite his white temples, which only emphasized his detached from the worldly dust demeanor. He looked to be just over 30 years old. Greedy Sleeper turned his head to look and laughed. "Junior brother, this is the one, take him up." He then turned to Fang Wang and introduced, "This is Inheritance Elder Zhao Xuanchen. Go with him to receive your direct disciple rewards." Fang Wang hurriedly paid his respects to Zhao Xuanchen, who had an indifferent expression and merely nodded slightly. Suddenly, he waved his sleeve, and a gust of wind brushed against their faces, directly sweeping Fang Wang away. The two turned into a rainbow light and disappeared among the mountains. This scene filled the entrance-level cultivators with envy, while Zhou Shui's lips curved upwards, her mood lifting immensely. In the future, he is destined to become a prominent figure in the Great Abyss Gate and even in the Dachi cultivation realm. In 100 years, no, at most in 50, all of you will take pride in having been his contemporaries, said Greedy Sleeper with a touch of emotion as if he was reminiscing about the rise and fall of life. "All right, now we will begin selecting the 5 sword-bearing disciples," Greedy Sleeper said, shifting his tone to a more serious note as he looked towards the cultivators. Ellipsis. Fang Wang stood behind Zhao Xuanchen on a flying sword, a 3-jong-long weapon beneath his feet, its blade shimmering with strands of silver light, breathtakingly beautiful. From high above, looking down upon the Great Abyss Gate, he saw a large city amidst the mountains, with Tai Yuan sect disciples coming and going, all sorts of flying artifacts and mounts catching his eyes. Zhao Xuanchen remained silent, which made it difficult for Fang Wang to initiate conversation, so he simply took in the scenery along the way. The Great Abyss Gate was vast, much larger than Southern Hills City. The peak Zhao Xuanchen was heading towards was the tallest, and only upon approach could one truly sense the majesty of this towering mountain. Soon, soaring on their swords, the two men landed in front of a palace. Fang Wang lifted his eyes to see the imposing palace named Xiuan Hall, guarded by 2 ferocious mythical beast statues at the entrance. Behind him was a white jade staircase with hundreds of steps leading to a vast platform spanning 2 or 3 miles where 3 disciples were cleaning. "Follow me," Zhao Xuanchen spoke and then stepped into the Xiuan Hall, with Fang Wang following closely behind. Inside Xiuan Hall, Fang Wang took in his surroundings. The hall was spacious and bright, giving him an impression of grandeur. There were no weapons displayed, nor were there any gaudy decorations. Fang Wang's gaze was drawn to a figure in the front, an old man in a white robe with white hair neatly coiled under a jade crown, not particularly tall, but his posture emanated a comforting stability, as if he could face any calamity of this world with his hands clasped behind his back. "Sect leader senior brother, he has arrived," Zhao Xuanchen announced, stopping in his tracks. Hearing the title sect leader, Fang Wang couldn't help but feel nervous. The sect leader turned around, sweeping his sleeves. His face was not as old as his figure suggested, although not young, he had the visage of an old man with a child's complexion. Fang Wang immediately bowed and greeted the man, having heard from Zhou Shui earlier that the sect leader of the Great Abyss Gate, Guang Chushan, was profoundly skilled and ranked among the top 5 in personal strength within the 9 great sects, with no clear ranking among them. "I've seen your performance, and it's quite good. I have high hopes for you. As a direct disciple, you will directly receive a superior grade spiritual weapon, but before that, you must choose which lineage to join," Guang Chushan said with a smile, appearing friendly and without any air of intimidation. Fang Wang responded, "I wish to join the 3rd lineage." This was arranged in advance by Zhou Shui on their way here. Each Fang family disciple had to join different lineages. Hearing this, Zhao Xuanchen couldn't help but give Fang Wang a peculiar look. Guang Chushan chuckled and said warmly, "Fang Wang, it seems you are well informed about the Great Abyss Gate. However, I should clarify that although the 3rd lineage's inheritance is indeed the most profound among the 9 lineages, its current situation is particular, and in terms of overall strength, it is ranked 8th. A lineage's ranking can affect its resources, so think carefully." Upon hearing that the inheritance was the most profound, Fang Wang immediately nodded, "I choose the 3rd lineage." Backquote. Zhao Xuanchen shook his head slightly, yet he did not speak. Guang Chushan nodded in agreement, then lifted his right hand. From within his sleeves flew out 3 beams of light, hovering above the hall, which were a green longsword, a jade flute, and a folding fan. These 3 are all superior grade spiritual weapons, quite similar to each other. Choose based on the one you feel a connection with, he said. Guang Chushan gave a brief introduction, then waited for Fang Wang to choose. Fang Wang didn't hesitate, directly choosing the sword since that was what he was best at. He would focus on learning other secret techniques and developing other magic artifacts later on. To establish oneself as a cultivator, one couldn't rely solely on a single magic artifact. Guang Chushan waved a hand, and the green longsword landed in Fang Wang's hands. The sword was entirely green, as if forged from green jade, and the blade wasn't sharp. Holding it with both hands, he felt a cooling sensation that calmed his heart. He noticed 2 characters engraved on the hilt of the sword. Qing Jun, do not use this magic artifact rashly before reaching the spiritual refinement realm, as it is easy to suffer from backlash, Guang Chushan warned him. Zhao Xuanqin turned around and said, let's go. I'll take you to collect the reward for a direct disciple. Fang Wang hurriedly sheathed the sword, paid his respects to Guang Chushan, and followed Zhao Xuanqin's steps. Watching Fang Wang's retreating figure, Guang Chushan's smile never faded, and once the 2 had left Xiuan Hall, he murmured to himself, another genius has emerged. It seems the Great Abyss Gate is on the rise. It's just a pity that he entered the sect late and won't be able to catch the upcoming fortunate opportunity. After leaving Xiuan Hall, under Zhao Xuanqin's lead, Fang Wang went to the main peak's administrative hall and received the direct disciple's jade pendant, then to the magic artifact hall, where he collected a storage bag, a flying sword, 100 talisman papers, and 10 spirit stones. The bounty didn't end there. They also went to the elixir hall, where he received 10 bottles of spiritual energy elixirs. Zhao Xuanqin also briefed him about the situation of the 3rd lineage, which had a total of over 2,000 disciples, including outer sect disciples. Currently, there were 4 direct disciples in the 3rd lineage, and with Fang Wang, there were now 5. Above the direct disciples were the single lineage's chief disciples, and above them, the chief disciple of the Great Abyss Gate. The chief disciple of a single lineage had the qualifications to inherit the position of peak master, whereas the Great Abyss Gate's chief disciple would be the next sect leader. Fang Wang wasn't interested in the elevation of status or position, and inquired about the highest inheritance of the 3rd lineage. Zhao Xuanqin looked at him deeply and replied, the 9 Heavens Azure Thunder Sword Formation. This sword array could be considered the strongest formation of the Great Abyss Gate, able to be used by a single person and counts as the most powerful spell, possessing a peerless might capable of stabilizing the world. However, nowadays no one can master the 9 Heavens Azure Thunder Sword Formation. Fang Wang silently took note of this. Afterwards, Zhao Xuanqin took him flying to the peak of the 3rd lineage, where disciples were seen meditating and cultivating all over the mountain, and there were many stone doors, the contents unknown. Under Zhao Xuanqin's guidance, Fang Wang landed in an open space, where hundreds of disciples were gathered, cultivating some kind of swordsmanship. In front of the open field, a line of distinguished disciples were scrutinizing those training, but when they saw Zhao Xuanqin, they immediately turned and all bowed in unison to him. Li Yu, this is your junior brother, Fang Wang. He has entered the sect today and has been acknowledged by the sect leader. Take him to settle into his cave abode, said Zhao Xuanqin to the man in the lead, and after speaking, he left on his sword, leaving Fang Wang behind. Li Yu, the chief disciple of the 3rd lineage, appeared. Young, but was actually over 200 years old. Hearing Zhao Xuanqin's words, Li Yu's eyes brightened, and the other disciples behind him also became excited, crowding around. Direct disciple, you must be the strongest among the new disciples of this batch. Good lad, you have keen eyesight for choosing the 3rd lineage, you definitely won't be disappointed. Ha ha ha, finally a remarkable genius joins the 3rd lineage. Junior brother Fang Wang, if there's anything you need, just call on me anytime. I'm a branch lineage disciple, my name is Zhou Bo. Within the Tai Yuan sect, disciples of a higher rank are addressed as senior brother, and only those of the same rank would talk about seniority. Fang Wang did not put on airs, and courteously exchanged pleasantries with them all. After some effort, Li Yu took Fang Wang to choose his cave abode. Throughout the way, Li Yu was very enthusiastic, introducing the third lineage to Fang Wang. The peak master of the third lineage was named Yang Yuanzi. In addition to leading the lineage's affairs, the peak master would also take direct disciples as apprentices. Li Yu highly praised Yang Yuanzi, almost as if Yang Yuanzi were the strongest of the peak masters. It took a full half-hour before Fang Wang finally chose his cave abode. It turned out that the stone doors on the mountain were the entrance to the cave abodes. There were also grades among cave abodes. As a direct disciple, he was entitled to one of the best cave abodes. After Li Yu bade farewell and left, Fang Wang entered the cave abode, and henceforth, he would use his own identity token to enter and leave this cave abode. An ownerless cave abode simply needed one to press their disciple token against the door to claim it. Of course, this claim was not unbreakable. The peak master could forcibly retrieve a cave abode. Everything in front of Fang Wang was eye-opening. From the outside it seemed the cave abode was small, but inside it was another world, large enough to be half the size of a soccer field, with a small lake at the deepest point. The cave abode was filled with rich spiritual energy. Just taking one breath was refreshing and clarifying. The cave abode was furnished with stone tables and benches, and there was also a white jade bed. After a brief exploration, he sat down on the white jade bed to practice qi gathering and cultivate. Having expended much spiritual power today, he needed to replenish it. According to Li Yu, Yang Yuanzi would only be able to come out of seclusion to meet him in 5 days. Direct disciples in the Great Abyss Gate enjoyed a lot of freedom. Even if they didn't do anything on ordinary days, they would still receive their cultivation resources from the sect punctually. While cultivating through qi gathering, Fang Wang harbored his own thoughts. The 9 Heavens Azure Thunder Sword formation, he must get his hands on it. For 5 days, Fang Wang did not leave his cave dwelling. Although he was excited to have joined the Great Abyss Gate, he had no intention of going out to socialize with other disciples. He understood all too well that his standing within Great Abyss Gate depended on his cultivation level. As long as he maintained the reputation of a genius, he would be surrounded by benevolent people. However, if he ever fell behind in his cultivation, troubles would naturally follow. At noon on this day, Fang Wang sensed something, opened his eyes, and picked up the token from his waist. A voice transmitted from it. Fang Wang, come to the Qingxin Hall to see me. It was an aged male voice. Hearing Qingxin Hall, Fang Wang's expression lightened, and he immediately got up. After thinking for a moment, he hung his storage bag on his belt, picked up the flying sword given by Zhou Shui, and quickly left his cave dwelling, then took to the skies on his flying sword. The Qingxin Hall was the peak master's palace, which meant that the person who had just spoken was his future mentor, Yang Yuanzi. He was very curious about what he might learn next. Located at the summit of the third peak, Qingxin Hall had been pointed out to him by the senior disciple, Li Yu, before. Ascending the peak, Fang Wang quickly arrived at the entrance to Qingxin Hall. No disciples guarded the place, and the palace was surrounded by tall trees, standing like giant swords. Fang Wang stood in front of the gate, and slowly pushed the door open, stepping inside. Qingxin Hall was not large and looked like an ordinary Taoist temple. Fang Wang walked up to a figure and bent over to salute, saying, "Disciple Fang Wang, greets master." Yang Yuanzi was seated in meditation facing away from him, in front of a stone statue. The statue was that of a woman, with an elegant demeanor. Its face, devoid of detailed features, appeared solemn and mysterious. At those words, Yang Yuanzi stood up and turned to look at him. Only then did Fang Wang clearly see Yang Yuanzi's true appearance. His hair was a mix of black and white, carelessly scattered. He wore a black Dao robe. His eyes were dull, like dry wells, and the stubble around his mouth made him look unkempt. This was a far cry from the image of Yang Yuanzi Fang Wang had expected. Yang Yuanzi asked, "Why choose the third peak?" Fang Wang had thought his words through beforehand and replied, "For the most profound legacy. The Nine Heavens Azure Thunder Sword Formation." "Of course, which family are you from?" "Disciple comes from the Fang family in Southern Hills City." "Never heard of it." "Well, no matter. I'm not interested. Now that you've joined my tutelage, you're my disciple, ranked 5th. You have 4 elder apprentice brothers and sisters. You will get to know them slowly. You're already at the 7th level of the Qi cultivation realm. Is there anything particular you wish to learn?" Yang Yuanzi spoke calmly. He seemed to have no interest in Fang Wang, this genius disciple. It was only then that Fang Wang realized why sect leader Guang Chushan had urged him to join the first peak. It seemed that the issue with the third peak lay with Yang Yuanzi. Fang Wang was straightforward. "Master, could you teach me how to use the storage bag?" Upon hearing this, Yang Yuanzi's pupils slightly contracted. He couldn't help but ask, "You don't know how to use a storage bag? Didn't your family teach you?" "My family doesn't understand cultivation. Only one of my kinspeople was guided by a cultivator, and I came to Great Abyss Gate following her." "How long have you been practicing?" "Less than a year." "You've reached the 7th level of the Qi cultivation realm in less than a year." Yang Yuanzi re-examined Fang Wang, narrowing his eyes. "Not bad. To open a storage bag, you need to develop your spiritual sense." Seeing that Fang Wang wanted to keep asking questions, Yang Yuanzi raised his hand and handed over a script to Fang Wang, saying, "This is the Great Abyss Gate's comprehensive guide to cultivation. It records various basic cultivation methods. Read it when you go back." Fang Wang quickly thanked his master, unaware that Yang Yuanzi was quite speechless. This book was intended for outer sect disciples to introduce them to the Tao of cultivation. Since becoming a peak master, he had hardly ever given out this book. It was the very book he had received when he first entered Great Abyss Gate, kept as a memento. Fang Wang tucked the scripture into his chest and then asked, "Master, might you pass on to me the Nine Heavens Azure Thunder Sword Formation? I'd like to try it." Yang Yuanzi huffed, saying irritably, "In Great Abyss Gate, you cannot simply learn whatever you desire. Even if your talents and comprehension are exceptional, you need to make contributions. At the time you were admitted, Great Abyss Gate didn't delve into your background, firstly because it didn't care, and secondly because you need to prove yourself by making contributions. As a direct disciple, you can select 3 superior cultivation techniques from the Daofa Pavilion, but the Nine Heavens Azure Thunder Sword Formation is a core legacy of one peak. If you wish to learn it, you must first become the senior disciple." Fang Wang eagerly inquired, "How can I become the senior disciple?" Yang Yuanzi was not annoyed but rather interested. "To become the senior disciple, you must first reach the spirit elixir realm, and you must have made significant achievements. Forget it for the next 50 years. Upon hearing this, Fang Wang was instantly disappointed. Yang Yuanzi changed his tone. "However, you are the first in the history of Great Abyss Gate to become a direct disciple upon entry. Although there has never been such an exception before, you will be recorded in the annals of Great Abyss Gate." He lifted his right hand, and a green jade slip appeared in his palm. "This sword technique is called the Jinghong Divine Sword Art, which I personally mastered. The Nine Heavens Azure Thunder Sword Formation belongs to the legacy of Great Abyss Gate, and I cannot give it to you directly. However, the Jinghong Divine Sword Art is different, having been acquired during my adventures in the cultivation world. Once you cultivate your spiritual sense, you can access the content of the jade slip." Yang Yuanzi's face bore a smile, but it was so awkward that it was more frightening than sorrowful. Fang Wang took the jade slip, suppressing his excitement, and asked, "Master, is this sword technique powerful?" Yang Yuanzi raised his chin proudly. With this sword technique, I secured my position as peak master of the third peak. Does that not speak of its strength? I've only practiced 27 moves of the technique and was able to sweep through cultivators of the same realm. If you can achieve minor success within 10 years, it would mean you have exceptional comprehension. Thank you, Master. I will not disappoint you. First cultivate to the 9th level of Qi cultivation realm. As a direct disciple, you can cultivate freely. When you reach the spiritual refinement realm, it won't be too late to start practicing the Jinghong divine sword art. Understood. Yang Yuanzi then went on to explain the rules of Great Abyss Gate, mainly that disciples must not kill each other, must not harm innocent mortals, and must not collude with the demonic path, among other matters. After giving instructions, Yang Yuanzi allowed Fang Wang to leave. Fang Wang didn't immediately go to the Daofa Pavilion to select a cultivation technique. He felt there was no rush, just mastering the Jinghong divine sword art would require him to spend time practicing. It seemed to have passed in a moment, but for him, it truly was living that many more years. Locking a person in a room with only food and drink assured, but no forms of entertainment, would drive one mad in a month. Even though Fang Wang longed for strength, staying in the heavenly palace for 100 or 200 years was also very painful. Once one entered the heavenly palace, they could not leave without reaching the great perfection realm. But he faintly discovered another advantage of the heavenly palace. Any cultivation technique or supreme skill could definitely be mastered to great perfection, which was truly domineering. Furthermore, since the opening of the heavenly palace, Fang Wang had gained an eidetic memory. Returning to his cave dwelling, Fang Wang first took out the cultivation guidelines and, according to the records, cultivated his spiritual sense. For him, who was at the 7th layer of the Qi cultivation realm, this was nothing. He accomplished it in just a couple of hours. The cultivation guidelines also recorded the realms of cultivation, from low to high: Qi cultivation, soul sculpting, spirit elixir, xuanxin, condensation. Above condensation were other realms, and the book mentioned, hoping disciples could touch even higher realms one day. The soul sculpting realm was a level that determined the fate of a cultivator. The rank of the life spirit treasure one sculpted directly affected a cultivator's talent and comprehension. Of course, it wasn't absolute. On the path of cultivation, there were always those who defied heaven and stunned past and present. Fang Wang set aside the cultivation guidelines and began his practice. He planned to accumulate his cultivation level to the 9th layer of the Qi cultivation realm before considering anything else. By then, he no longer needed to eat and could focus on his cultivation. Closing his eyes, he seemed to enter the state of training in the heavenly palace. 1.5 months later, Fang Wang reached the 8th layer of the Qi cultivation realm. The gap between the 7th and 8th layers was indeed as large as Zhou Shui had described. His previous victory was only because the Solaris scripture was stronger than the cultivation techniques of those other cultivators. He continued to cultivate. Nearly 4 months passed, and Fang Wang finally reached the 9th layer of the Qi cultivation realm in one breath. He opened his eyes, and a glint flashed in them. He once again condensed the Solaris true fire. 9 small suns floated behind his head, illuminating the cave dwelling. Feeling the surging spiritual power within his body, he suddenly felt like when he first reached the martial mythical realm. Well, he felt invincible. Of course, this feeling was only momentary, and he knew that he was still at the bottom in the cultivation world and needed to keep striving. Fang Wang picked up the jade slip given to him by Yang Yuanzi and probed into it with his spiritual sense. A vast array of text flooded into his mind. After sorting it all out, he felt woozy, and when he opened his eyes again, he had already arrived in the heavenly palace. He stood inside the main hall of the heavenly palace and began practicing the Jinghong divine sword art. The Jinghong divine sword art consisted of 36 strikes. One didn't need to have a sword in hand. The sword technique condensed a sword shape, much like a magic artifact, moving as one desired. Yang Yuanzi himself claimed to have practiced only up to the 27th strike, which made Feng Wang hold great expectations for the 36 strikes. However, just the first strike took him 5 years to practice. The Jinghong divine sword art was very difficult to cultivate. It was not just about condensing spiritual power into a sword shape but also about imbuing it with spiritual sense, making the sword shape an extension of one's vision, which also tested the spiritual sense. However difficult, as long as one entered the heavenly palace, they would definitely master it, even if it meant enduring more time. Feng Wang continued to cultivate the second strike. The second strike also took 5 years. It wasn't until the sixth strike that the time taken to practice shortened to 2 years. Feng Wang originally thought he had made it, but when he continued to practice up to the 18th strike, each required more than 10 years, nearly causing him to collapse. Who could day after day, for over 100 years, train and learn without any form of entertainment in between? Feng Wang had tried to create a computer from his previous life within the heavenly palace, but it was just a shell. As for creating a person, that was even more impossible. Just like that, by the time Feng Wang finally mastered the 36 strikes, 36 sword shapes, each resembling the Qingjun sword, floated around him, very dazzling. Only his face was filled with numbness. Finally, it's over. As these words fell, Feng Wang's consciousness returned to reality. Practicing the Jinghong divine sword art had taken him 200 years. Numb, Feng Wang immediately got up and walked out of the cave dwelling. He needed to go see the outside scenery, or he would go insane. Boom! The door to the cave dwelling opened, and sunlight fell upon Feng Wang. At that moment, he felt truly alive. He went to the edge of the cliff and admired the magnificent scenery of the Great Abyss Gate's peaks, standing there for half an hour before returning to continue his cultivation. Watching the disciples coming and going, Feng Wang finally felt a sense of reality. Feng Wang, long time no see, have you achieved soul sculpting? A female voice came, and Feng Wang turned to look. It was Jiyu Li from the Luo Bei Jiyu family. Jiyu Li's cave dwelling was right next to his, which surprised him secretly. This place was meant for direct disciples. Not yet, I didn't expect Miss Gu's cave dwelling to be right beside mine. Feng Wang looked at Jiyu Li, standing at the entrance of her cave dwelling, and answered with a smile. Under the sunshine, Jiyu Li, dressed in a Great Abyss Gate Dao robe without a veil, appeared exceptionally captivating, like a celestial fairy. Inside Feng Wang's cave dwelling was a set of Dao robes for direct disciples, which seemed almost identical to the one Jiyu Li was wearing. Could it be that Jiyu Li had also become a direct disciple? Jiyu Li gazed at Feng Wang and said softly, I chose this place next to you on purpose. I've successfully reached the soul sculpting realm and have become a direct disciple. From now on, you'll be my senior brother. Direct disciple? So soon? Feng Wang was surprised inwardly but maintained his composure on the surface. Seeing him unaffected, Jiyu Li's hand tightened slightly within her sleeve. She strove to stabilize her emotions, reminding herself not to be hasty. Master told me you were only at the 7th layer of the Qi cultivation realm when you joined. It has been only several months, and you've already reached the 9th layer. It seems you'll soon be undergoing spiritual refinement. Before that happens, can we spar once more? Jiyu Li's face turned slightly red as she spoke. Feng Wang looked at her skeptically. A soul sculpting realm fighting a Qi cultivation realm? What a joke! How shameless! Feng Wang was about to refuse when he heard Jiyu Li continue. I won't use my life spirit treasure. I've just made a breakthrough in my 5 sacred sword technique and I'd like to spar with you. Don't worry, we'll find a secluded place so word won't spread. Feng Wang found this to be troublesome at first, but now he was suddenly keen to experience the might of the soul sculpting realm. Inside the Great Abyss Gate, there wouldn't be a murderous intent. Where to? Feng Wang asked. Jiyu Li's eyes lit up as she said, let's go to the forest at the bottom of the mountain. Sparring is a common occurrence, and as long as it's not fueled by hatred, the Great Abyss Gate won't forbid it. We won't use magic swords but spar with wooden swords instead. Fang Wang wanted to say that wooden swords and magic swords could both kill, but he didn't want to waste words. It was actually a good opportunity to test the Jinghong divine sword art. Let's go to the forest. Okay. The two of them immediately headed down the mountain, with Ji Yu Li leading the way. They didn't use the sword control technique to fly. From above, the two figures walking side by side on the mountain path looked like a pair of celestial beings. Along the way, Ji Yu Li made small talk with Fang Wang, and upon hearing that he had been cultivating ever since he joined, she began to tell him about recent interesting events within the Great Abyss Gate. Fang Wang, having just experienced 200 years of darkness, was also interested in these tales, so he listened on, occasionally interjecting with questions. By the way, is Zhou Shui a member of your family? Ji Yu Li suddenly asked. Fang Wang nodded and said, yes, what about her? He wasn't worried that Zhou Shui would encounter trouble. After all, she was a reborn individual, not causing trouble to others was already good enough. She passed the sect's illusionary realm test and received the inheritance of the previous sect leader. Her fame has skyrocketed. Once she completes spiritual refinement, even if her life spirit treasure has average quality, she'll become a direct disciple, Ji Yu Li remarked with a sigh. Illusionary realm test. Fang Wang hadn't heard Zhou Shui mention it, but it was within reason that she would encounter such an opportunity. Being reborn was the greatest advantage. With so many opportunities in her mind, Zhou Shui could surely choose an even stronger path than in her previous life. Since joining the Great Abyss Gate, the two had lost contact, but Fang Wang remembered the lineage she had chosen for herself, the first lineage. And so, Fang Wang and Ji Yu Li chatted leisurely as they made their way towards the forest. After the time it took an incense stick to burn, the two entered the forest, where the sparse trees made it a suitable place for a match, and the dense foliage overhead concealed them from the prying eyes of passing disciples. Fang Wang and Ji Yu Li stood 3 zhang apart. He lifted his right hand and said, "Come on, this time, I won't use the sword control technique." The sword control technique. At the mention of these 3 words, Ji Yu Li's expression changed. The technique that defeated her before was indeed the sword control technique. Being defeated by a sophisticated swordsmanship, she could accept that, but to be beaten by the sword control technique. And at that time, her opponent was only at the 7th layer of the Qi cultivation realm. Ji Yu Li took a deep breath and immediately drew out 2 wooden swords, tossing one to Fang Wang and holding the other in her right hand. Fang Wang caught the wooden sword, examined it, and intended to refuse to fight with it. However, he didn't want to insult her, so he decided to go along with it. This was a good strategy indeed. He had always posed as a swordsman, yet he didn't need a sword to execute the Jinghong divine sword art. Perhaps this could be life-saving in a critical moment later on. As Fang Wang held the wooden sword, he pointed it at Ji Yu Li. With his left hand, he extended 2 fingers and ran them along the sword blade. 3 streams of sword qi overflowed from the blade, quickly condensing into 3 sword shapes that hovered in front of him. This sight caused Ji Yu Li's brows to furrow, and she was inwardly shocked. What swordsmanship was this? Taking a deep breath, Ji Yu Li immediately executed her family's ultimate technique, the 5 sacred sword technique. She swung her sword rapidly, the moves fierce and her figure so fast that afterimages appeared. In an instant, it looked as though 5 people were wielding swords simultaneously, and the tyrannical sword qi swept towards Fang Wang like a windstorm, cutting fine notches into the passing trees with extreme sharpness. Fang Wang, holding the sword in his right hand, twisted his wrist and suddenly thrust forward. The 3 sword shapes turned into 3 streaks of cyan frost, lunging forward. Boom! The 2 sword qi forces collided, and the seemingly strong 5 sacred sword qi was instantly shredded by the 3 cyan streaks. Ji Yu Li's hair was blown about, and her eyes widened instinctively in shock. At that moment, she had the same sense of dread as she had when competing for the position of direct disciple. Fortunately, the 3 cyan streaks dissipated just before reaching her. Yet, even so, the powerful sword streaks made her heart skip a beat. Fang Wang sheathed his sword, inwardly relieved that his Jinghong divine sword art had reached great perfection, otherwise, it would have been difficult to restrain the sword just now. The surrounding forest shook violently, leaves falling like rain, surrounding Ji Yu Li in this shower of leaves as she fell into a daze. Worried that she might make another request, Fang Wang spoke up, "Miss Ji Yu, your swordsmanship is very strong, and you are the most formidable sword cultivator I have ever fought. Let's spar again in the future, I need to return to my cultivation now." Having said that, he leapt up and, stepping on his wooden sword, swiftly flew out of the forest. At the same time, a male disciple flew over, noticing the commotion below in the woods, and was about to check it out when he saw Fang Wang flying out on his sword. He was immediately thrilled and hurried over. "Brother Fang, it's rare to see you," the male disciple intercepted Fang Wang, speaking enthusiastically. Fang Wang felt that he looked somewhat familiar and replied politely, "I was in closed-door cultivation previously and have come out for a stroll today." "Brother Fang, do you remember me? I'm Zhou Bo." "Of course I remember," he replied. In the woods, Ji Yu Li took a deep breath. This was not her first defeat, and the blow was not as great as before, especially considering that she had gained Fang Wang's approval. "Wait a second, that young man hasn't been cultivating for a year yet, how many sword cultivators could he have possibly met?" Ji Yu Li recalled her master Yang Yuanzi's lament, her face instantly turned unpleasant, with no anger in her heart, only boundless confusion. She took a deep breath, then controlled her sword to fly away. Fang Wang hurriedly dealt with Zhou Bo and left. As Zhou Bo was admiring Brother Fang's dedication to arduous cultivation, he followed and saw Ji Yu Li fly out of the forest. Ruffled by the impact of the Jinghong divine sword art, Ji Yu Li's hair was slightly disheveled, which startled Zhou Bo. Without giving him any heed, Ji Yu Li quickly flew toward the mountain. Zhou Bo withdrew his gaze, standing on his flying sword, and muttered in a low voice, "Brother Fang truly has a taste for excitement." Ellipsis. After landing, Fang Wang leaned the wooden sword against the mountain gate of Ji Yu Li's cave abode before swiftly returning to his own. Having struck a blow to a young talent of the heavens, he feared endless trouble, but there was nothing he could do about it as it was Ji Yu Li who had sought him out. Sitting crossed-legged on the white jade bed, Fang Wang reflected on the previous battle, finding the soul-sculpting realm not so impressive, at least not much compared to him. Perhaps the life-spirit treasure significantly enhances combat power in the soul-sculpting realm. Fang Wang didn't dwell on it and continued to cultivate in Qi gathering, knowing that reaching the 9th level of the Qi cultivation realm didn't mean he could directly assault the soul-sculpting realm. Between the 9th level of Qi cultivation and the soul-sculpting realm lay a nameless realm, which also existed in martial arts. Some called it opportunity, some called it great perfection. In any case, he just wanted to reach the soul-sculpting realm as quickly as possible. Outside the cave abode, Ji Yu Li looked at the wooden sword leaning against the mountain gate, biting her lip, picked up the sword, and walked back into her own cave abode. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Fang Wang's spiritual power had doubled, and amidst the mists, he faintly sensed a sign of a breakthrough but found that his cultivation could still grow. So, he continued to practice, wanting to wait until he could no longer improve before attempting the breakthrough. One day, a voice came from outside the cave. "Fang Wang, are you there?" Upon hearing this, Fang Wang immediately got up and went over. He opened the mountain gate, and as the sunlight poured in, he saw a long mist face. Zhou Shui. After several months, Zhou Shui, dressed in the robes of the Great Abyss Gate disciples, looked even more beautiful. The spirit and vigor in her brows were something Ji Yu Li didn't possess. She was spirited and sharp, while Ji Yu Li was merely cold-faced. Zhou Shui stepped directly into the cave, walking past Fang Wang, and gestured, "Close the door." Fang Wang immediately closed the mountain gate of the cave abode and then followed Zhou Shui's steps. Why have you come? Fang Wang asked with surprise. Zhou Shui huffed. You've been in closed-door cultivation all this time, trying to sever ties with the Fang family. The other disciples have already met and established connections, only you have not stepped out of the third vein. I had no choice but to come find you. Fang Wang explained, I only wish to reach the soul sculpting realm sooner. The 9th level of Qi cultivation, not bad. It seems you haven't neglected your cultivation. I was just worried that girl from the Jiyu family might entangle herself with you, and you wouldn't be able to contain the restlessness of youth and sink into it. While speaking, Zhou Shui sat down at the stone table. Fang Wang helplessly replied, how could that be? I am the 13th son of the Fang family. If I was so easily moved, all those pretty maids in the house, the daughters of noble families in the city, would have already been mesmerized by me. Zhou Shui huffed. I hope so. I came today to bid you farewell. I'm planning to leave, and I probably won't return for 3 to 5 years. That long? What for? Fang Wang sat down and curiously asked, wondering how to fish for some peerless skills. Zhou Shui looked at him and said, to seize a great opportunity and incidentally investigate this soul-burning banner in my hand. If I don't settle this matter, I won't be at peace. Take me with you. With such good talent as yours, just focus on your cultivation. A genius like you should concentrate on practice. I've seen too many talented geniuses who thought they were strong enough only to be killed by old monsters, and those with great fortune once they went out, becoming pitiful figures in someone else's story. Besides, I operate better alone. All right then. Fang Wang was just being polite with a casual comment. After all, he couldn't brazenly beg Zhou Shui to take him along, and indeed, he didn't want to go out either. He wasn't quite at the stage of seeking opportunities outside yet. But still, how should he broach the subject? Zhou Shui teased with a chuckle, what now? You want to ask me for cultivation techniques and spells? Fang Wang had not expected Zhou Shui to be so direct. He gave a fake cough and said, only if I become stronger can I help you, just like during the crisis when our clan was nearly wiped out. Zhou Shui stared into his eyes, making him feel uneasy. However, the thought of not seeing each other for several years compelled Fang Wang to meet Zhou Shui's gaze with determination. After a few moments of eye contact, Zhou Shui revealed a smile and said, I can only give you one opportunity. Tell me, what type of supreme technique do you desire? Just one chance. Fang Wang felt a twinge of disappointment but also understood Zhou Shui. After all, you never know what's in another's heart, and considering Zhou Shui had been reborn, only she knew how many times she had been betrayed in her previous life. Sword control technique, Solaris scripture, and now, Fang Wang owed Zhou Shui even more. As for owing a life debt, it was Zhou Shui who had saved Fang Wang. Without the sword control technique, Fang Wang would have certainly perished against that cultivator, because with his character, he would never abandon his clan members to escape alone. After all, he had already died once, so in this matter, they had redeemed each other. How could Fang Wang say to Zhou Shui directly, I have the heavenly palace, you help me become invincible, and I will ensure your eternal peace and safety? That's ridiculous. No one is the absolute protagonist of the world. Even if Zhou Shui believed him about the heavenly palace, Fang Wang still had to consider if the other party might harbor ill will. In the end, one can only rely on oneself. After much deliberation, Fang Wang thought he didn't lack cultivation techniques or combat spells. He was missing a speed-based supreme technique, for instance, to increase his chances of escaping when facing an unbeatable enemy, so he shared his thoughts. Sword control technique is just a basic spell in the cultivation world. Indeed, you need an evasion technique. I will teach you the white rainbow evasion technique. Zhou Shui said thoughtfully. Seeing Fang Wang about to question further, she gave him a stern look and said, don't ask me if this technique is strong or not. You'll know once you practice it. Fang Wang, feeling awkward, could only nod in agreement. Zhou Shui began to impart the practice methods of the white rainbow evasion technique, and Fang Wang listened intently. After Zhou Shui finished, Fang Wang was irresistibly drawn back into the heavenly palace. Looking at the grandiose inner halls, he sighed. He had just been brooding for 200 years, left for less than half an hour, and now he was back again. But he had no choice since Zhou Shui was about to leave. He started to practice the white rainbow evasion technique, which was a flying art that allowed one to transform into a white rainbow, streaking across the sky at extreme speeds. At great completion, it was as fast as a white rainbow flying across 10,000 miles. The white rainbow evasion technique wasn't classified into levels like the Solaris scripture or the Jinghong divine sword art, so as Fang Wang practiced, he couldn't see how far he was from achieving great perfection. After 63 years of dedicated practice, Fang Wang finally mastered the white rainbow evasion technique to great perfection. He was very pleased with the final result. He was indeed as fast as a white rainbow streaking through the sky, and as his cultivation continued to rise, this technique would only become faster. At least for now, the speed he demonstrated had already surpassed all the flying speeds he had seen since joining the Great Abyss Gate. Fang Wang's consciousness returned to the present, his vision cleared, just in time to see Zhou Shui looking at him. Zhou Shui teased, "How is it, young prodigy? Is the technique difficult?" Fang Wang raised an eyebrow and said with a smile, "Just average. I've already mastered it." Heh. Zhou Shui couldn't help but roll her eyes in disbelief. She didn't press Fang Wang to demonstrate, but instead stood up and said, "All right, it's time for me to go. I hope when I return, you will have succeeded in spiritual refinement. Make sure to keep in touch with other Fang family disciples when you have time. I arranged for you to be separated in different branches for strategic purposes. Even as a 1 in a million genius, you could face suppression. Even the most righteous sects have internal struggles, and no sect purely regards talent alone. Kinship and interest relations are the foundation of everything," Zhou Shui advised, worried that Fang Wang would follow the same path as she did in her past life. Fang Wang nodded. He was not averse to social interactions, especially with his own clan members. Right now, he was just focused on becoming stronger. Afterward, Fang Wang escorted Zhou Shui out of his cave abode. Zhou Shui left on her sword, turning into a white rainbow and vanishing into the clouds and mist in the blink of an eye. White rainbow evasion technique, Fang Wang commented to himself, qualifying it as a minor success. Worthy of a reborn individual. Suddenly, he heard a noise nearby. Turning his head, he saw Ji Yuli walking out of her own cave dwelling, her eyes full of complex emotions as she looked at Fang Wang. Fang Wang felt a chill run down his spine under her gaze. He smiled and gave Ji Yuli a slight nod. Ji Yuli responded with a nod, then left on her sword, which made Fang Wang breathe a sigh of relief. He truly feared Ji Yuli might cling to him. Afterward, Fang Wang returned to his cave dwelling to continue his practice. Ellipsis. 3 months later, Fang Wang's spiritual power had reached a full state, and he felt he couldn't further improve. So, he left his cave dwelling to visit his master, Yang Yuanzi. Inside Qingxin Hall, Yang Yuanzi looked at Fang Wang curiously and said, "Indeed, you've reached the state necessary for spiritual refinement. Have you been cultivating for a full year yet?" Fang Wang responded, "Almost, I suppose." Yang Yuanzi's lip twitched, and he sighed, "With your talent, you should be at the first branch. The 9 Heavens Azure Thunder Sword formation is powerful, but it's too difficult to learn. The inheritance of the first branch is also very strong. Having joined the third branch, how could I be so fickle? Master, rest assured, I will cultivate diligently and bring honor to the third branch." Fang Wang replied earnestly. He purposefully made his stance clear, hoping to become the eldest disciple sooner and then obtain the inheritance of the 9 Heavens Azure Thunder Sword formation. Even if he stepped back and became the eldest disciple, he would access more resources for cultivation. Armed with the great perfection level of the Solaris scripture and the cave dwelling of a direct disciple, Fang Wang didn't currently need resources, but he wouldn't be complacent. He believed that the realms ahead were even more difficult. Even someone as strong as Zhou Shui had to seek opportunities everywhere. When Yang Yuanzi heard Fang Wang's words, he didn't smile. Instead, he shook his head and followed with, "All 9 veins have their own spirit molding ground, but your talent in cultivation is indeed rare in a century. Let me take you to meet the sect leader. The spirit molding ground at the main peak is more effective." Fang Wang was overjoyed and quickly thanked his master. This way, Fang Wang accompanied Yang Yuanzi to the main peak to meet with sect leader Guang Chushan in the Xiyuan Hall. Hearing that Fang Wang was about to undergo spiritual refinement, sect leader Guang Chushan wasn't surprised, as he had long been aware of Fang Wang's cultivating pace. He stroked his beard and laughed, "Of course, you may. Let's go. Someone happens to be undergoing spiritual refinement right now, so you can take a look." He stood up and led Yang Yuanzi and Fang Wang toward the side hall. They wound through the convoluted corridors and arrived deep within the Xiyuan Hall, at a spot connected to the mountain cliff where a waterfall descended from the clouds, forming a pond. Inside the pond, a bare-chested man was undergoing spiritual refinement. Standing on the corridor, Fang Wang saw a set of clothes and a book chest nearby and realized this person was the man in black he met in the same period, previously wearing a bamboo hat, wrapped tightly, so he didn't recognize him at first glance. This man's name is Zhou Xingxi. He joined Great Abyss Gate with you and was defeated by you. He has now joined the second vein. Don't underestimate him, he is about to create his own mysterious origin treasure spirit. Sect leader Guang Chushan stroked his beard and laughed, feeling proud as more and more geniuses emerged in Great Abyss Gate. Yang Yuanzi hummed, "You had him undergo spiritual refinement here because you thought he could create an Earth origin spirit treasure, right? There's always something to hope for. Ha, someone with talents like Lu Yuanjin comes once in centuries, he's not someone you encounter easily." "Oh, is that so? You lack confidence in your disciple." Listening to their conversation, Fang Wang felt something was off, as if there was some kind of overt and covert rivalry between them. Could it be they didn't get along? No wonder the sect leader initially had some objections to him going to the third vein. This was bad. Had he sided with the wrong faction? Was the third vein being marginalized by the sect leader? Yang Yuanzi hummed, "We will see soon enough." Fang Wang watched Zhou Xingxi. Zhou looked to be in his 20s or 30s, with a somewhat weather-beaten face. Around him, strands of black light whirled like a vortex towards his head. There, a black fan was slowly taking shape, becoming more solid, with a hint of metallic luster. Is this the treasure spirit? Fang Wang was filled with anticipation for his own treasure spirit. Sect leader Guang Chushan and Yang Yuanzi stopped their quarreling and watched intently. After an incense stick's time, the black fan above Zhou Xingxi's head suddenly fluttered, sending a wave of visible black energy sweeping across the pool's surface, severing even the waterfall as it nearly crashed into Xiyuan Hall. Guang Chushan raised his hand, blocking it with his own spiritual power. Boom! The black energy collided with an invisible barrier and dispersed instantly. Fang Wang's robes whipped in the wind, and his sideburns fluttered. He couldn't help but look at Guang Chushan in awe. What realm was the sect leader in? Just the aura alone made Fang Wang feel unable to contend. In the pool, Zhou Xingxi slowly opened his eyes, lifted his right hand, and the black fan above quickly descended into his grasp. Holding the fan, he smiled, seemingly relieved. A superior Zhan Yuan spirit treasure, impressive indeed. Enough to rank him among the top 10 disciples of the current generation, praised sect leader Guang Chushan. Zhou Xingxi stood up and gave his respects to Guang Chushan. He also noticed Fang Wang's arrival. Sect leader Guang Chushan turned to Fang Wang and smiled, "Go ahead, meditate in the pond. While cultivating, imagine the treasure spirit you desire. The spiritual energy of nature here will aid you in molding your own treasure spirit." Fang Wang nodded and immediately approached the pond, while Zhou Xingxi followed and nodded at him in greeting. Sitting cross-legged in the middle of the pond, Fang Wang took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began his cultivation. After putting on his clothes, Zhou Xingxi didn't leave but stayed to watch Fang Wang undergo spiritual refinement. With the three people watching, Fang Wang felt some pressure, but he soon cast away all external distractions. According to the cultivation guidelines, life spirit treasures from low to high are classified as yellow origin, mysterious origin, earth origin, and heaven yuan spirit treasures. Each rank is further divided into lower, middle, upper, and supreme grades. The highest grade spirit treasure ever seen in the history of Great Abyss Gate has been a lower grade earth origin precious spirit. It is said Lu Yuanjin's own life spirit treasure reached a middle grade earth origin spirit treasure, breaking the historical limit of Great Abyss Gate and being the reason for the sect's current revival. Creating a life spirit treasure requires a special heavenly Tao spirit stone, only upon which can one create their life spirit treasure. Beneath the pond where Fang Wang sat was a huge heavenly Tao spirit stone. The 9 great sects dominate the Dachi cultivation realm because they control the highest grade heavenly Tao spirit stones, not just one but several. Many cultivator families unable to undergo spiritual refinement can only have their family disciples join one of the 9 great sects. Fang Wang began to imagine the form of his own life spirit treasure. His first choice was a sword since his strongest move was now the Jinghong divine sword art. Gradually, faint flickers of light swirled around him, gathering towards his head, much like Zhou Xingxi had before. The process of spiritual refinement was incredibly wondrous. As Fang Wang envisioned the sword-shaped spirit he desired, he entered a strange state of inner vision, seeing within his body a black region where flames fiercely burned, gradually taking the shape of a sword. Fang Wang's attention was focused on this sword. At that moment, his thoughts seemed to transform into invisible hands, capable of touching the sword. As he was engrossed in the process, the flames around him surged towards his head, condensing into a fireball. Guang Chushan, Yang Yuanzi, and Zhou Xingxi stood on the walkway, watching. Your disciple's cultivation technique is extraordinary. It's the first time I've seen such a burning aura of spiritual power, Guang Chushan exclaimed in admiration. Yang Yuanzi remained silent. His understanding of Fang Wang was actually quite shallow. Zhou Xingxi, on the other hand, thought back to the battle before his initiation. He had exchanged just one palm strike with Fang Wang and had to nurse his injuries for a whole month. Even now, the memory made him shudder. The joy of sculpting the mysterious origin treasure spirit had already faded. He stared at the nascent form of Fang Wang's spirit above his head, and intuition told him that Fang Wang's spirit would certainly surpass his own. At the 7th level of the Qi cultivation realm, he could sweep him and 50 other cultivators. He dared not speculate what kind of life spirit treasure Fang Wang would shape. In his family, he had heard many tales of geniuses, but Fang Wang was the most terrifying talent he had ever encountered. Setting aside their strength, this youngster was only at the 7th level of the Qi cultivation realm a few months ago, and now he was following him in spiritual refinement. Zhou Xingxi's heart trembled, and his gaze toward Fang Wang grew ever more complex. Time slowly slipped by. Half an hour later, the treasure spirit forming above Fang Wang's head had already taken on a basic sword shape, and the blazing flames around him grew increasingly immense, like fiery snakes entwining his body, even causing the water in the pool to boil, sending up billows of hot mist. Stroking his beard, Guang Chushan laughed and said, "He's attained at least a mysterious origin." Yang Yuanzi, with a solemn expression, said, "Reaching the mysterious origin grade at this stage, he may truly attain the earth origin grade." His glance unintentionally fell on Zhou Xingxi, causing Zhou's heart to skip wildly. He suddenly regretted staying to watch, but to say he would leave now was even more impossible. Guang Chushan, staring at Fang Wang, proudly laughed and said, "After Lu Yuanjin, there comes another Fang Wang. Why should Great Abyss Gate worry about flourishing?" Upon hearing this, Yang Yuanzi shook his head and snorted coldly, "Sect leader, I advise you not to get too carried away. Don't forget the tragedy of Taichung Gate. Great Abyss Gate attracts cultivator clans with its talents, which might lead to jealousy from other sects. One Lu Yuanjin might not cause trouble, but another might not be so certain." Hearing this, Guang Chushan's smile gradually faded. Zhou Xingxi, upon hearing this, grew even more regretful and began pondering how to respond later. Time continued to pass, second by second. The sword-shaped treasure spirit above Fang Wang's head became more tangible, with fine patterns even visible. Not only that, but this treasure spirit had begun to absorb the natural spiritual energy from the surroundings. Earth origin. Guang Chushan uttered two words. The ability to absorb nature's spiritual energy during spiritual refinement was a characteristic of an Earth origin spirit treasure. Zhou Xingxi felt a whirlwind of emotions, his hands clenched tight. For such a genius to sculpt an Earth origin treasure spirit is not surprising. Why should I bother comparing myself to him? Zhou Xingxi consoled himself. Fang Wang's treasure spirit continued to condense, causing Guang Chushan to lose his composure, his brows furrowed tight. Yang Yuanzi narrowed his eyes, his gaze firmly fixed on Fang Wang's life spirit treasure. At this moment, Fang Wang was still observing his life spirit treasure within that dark realm. In the darkness, his life spirit treasure had already taken the sword shape he wanted, with the hilt and the guard as if entwined by a majestic red dragon, powerful and commanding. Wielding such a sword would be so cool. Fang Wang was satisfied with his aesthetic choice. Just as he was admiring his treasure spirit, he suddenly sensed something and his gaze subconsciously drifted upwards. Above, a light appeared in the darkness, and his heavenly palace revealed itself. This is, as Fang Wang was puzzled, the gates of the heavenly palace suddenly swung open, and a beam of light burst forth, shooting down and striking his life spirit treasure head-on. Boom! His sword-shaped treasure spirit was instantly extinguished. At the same time, outside, the three observers Guang Chushan, Yang Yuanzi, and Zhou Xingxi saw Fang Wang's treasure spirit above his head suddenly explode, with a blast of flame spreading out. Guang Chushan raised his hand, shielding the blast of flames with his spiritual power. His brow was tightly knitted, and his eyes showed signs of disappointment. Yang Yuanzi frowned deeply, speaking in a heavy tone, "He failed. How is that possible? Only a yellow origin treasure spirit could possibly result in failure." Zhou Xingxi, witnessing this scene, felt a mix of surprise and pity. For such an outstanding figure to fail in spiritual refinement was like falling from the clouds to the mortal world. He still had been looking forward to seeing how powerful Fang Wang would become after successful refinement. If successful, he might have witnessed the rise of a legend. What a pity! Still in a state of inner vision, Fang Wang stared at the heavenly palace, stunned. What's going on? Why would the heavenly palace destroy his treasure spirit? In that moment, he panicked. Although the heavenly palace was present, ensuring there must be a way forward, he didn't want to play the role of a hidden dragon. In Great Abyss Gate, a life spirit treasure determined one's talent and was also decisive for one's treatment. Just when Fang Wang didn't know what to do, the gates of the heavenly palace didn't close. More light appeared inside, growing brighter and brighter. That is, Fang Wang looked at the intense light inside the heavenly palace and vaguely saw a blurry figure. Ellipsis. I've failed, Guang Chushan said in a deep voice, his face filled with disappointment. He took a deep look at Fang Wang, turned around, and prepared to leave. Just then, he suddenly felt something and whirled around. Flames surged in the eyes of the three men as they watched the blaze around Fang Wang grow wildly. His robe was burned to ashes, and the water in the pool evaporated at an extreme speed, filling the corridors of Xiuan Hall with an overpowering heat. Yang Yuanzi was moved, and Zhou Xingxi's eyes widened in disbelief. Under their scrutiny, Fang Wang had turned into a man of fire, with roaring flames surging towards the top of his head and converging there. Is this the reformation of a treasure spirit? How is that possible? Yang Yuanzi exclaimed, unable to maintain his composure any longer. Guang Chushan seemed to think of something, his pupils dilated. He took a deep breath and said, "Legend has it that when the life spirit treasure is condensed, a phenomenon of nirvana rebirth may occur. This often happens to unparalleled geniuses. Life spirit treasures capable of nirvana rebirth are a mandate of heaven." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to look at Zhou Xingxi, only to see a black fan taking shape above his head. "My treasure spirit, why is it out of control?" Zhou Xingxi asked in a panic, his gaze involuntarily seeking assistance from sect leader Guang Chushan. However, Guang Chushan didn't pay him any attention. He gave Zhou Xingxi a glance and then turned his gaze back to Fang Wang in the pool. Elsewhere, Ji Yuli, who was meditating in her cave, suddenly opened her eyes. She looked up with a frown, only to see a silver sword appearing above her head. It was her life spirit treasure. "What's going on?" Ji Yuli murmured to herself, an inexplicable sense of unease in her heart as she couldn't recall her own life spirit treasure. Since reaching the spiritual refinement realm, it was the first time she had encountered such a situation. It wasn't just her. Those disciples of the Great Abyss Gate flying between the peaks in the soul sculpting realm were also experiencing the same phenomenon, their life spirit treasures materializing above their heads. Some disciples stopped in their tracks, variously nervous or panic-stricken. Inside Xiuan Hall, the glow of fire lit the faces of Guang Chushan, Yang Yuanzi, and Zhou Xingxi, all three of them in shock, incapable of keeping their composure. Yang Yuanzi clenched his teeth and said, "My life spirit treasure is also afraid." Guang Chushan's face was grim and he remained silent, but his heart was equally turbulent. They saw that among the roaring inferno above Fang Wang's head, the shape of a divine weapon gradually took form. It wasn't a sword but a long polearm. At that moment, Fang Wang, in an introspective state, also saw this long polearm. Boom! The darkness shattered, his consciousness flickered, and suddenly he felt his feet touch the ground. He opened his eyes in surprise to find himself inside the heavenly palace. A polearm nearly 10 feet long stood before him, with an elusive azure dragon coiling around it. The halberd was embellished with crescent blades on both sides, each a third of the length of the halberd. Between the two blades ran the body of the polearm, shaped like a coiled dragon with its maw open to the skies, spitting out the blade, and the tail as sharp as a short sword. The body of the polearm was pitch black, emitting a faint glow. What an imposing halberd! Fang Wang instinctively reached out and grasped the halberd. In that instant, his body's Solaris true fire surged out, wrapping around the polearm. Blades at both ends caught flame, and even the sharp tail end ignited. Fiery patterns covered the shaft, adding both color and a divine aura to the weapon. The moment he grasped the halberd, Fang Wang sensed a connection to it as if it were a part of his own body. An intense emotion urged him to name the halberd, and he slowly voiced his thought, Heavenly Palace Halberd. Named for the Heavenly Palace. In an instant, his consciousness returned to reality, and he stood up instinctively. Under the watchful eyes of Guang Chushan and the others, Fang Wang rose, flames engulfing his body, and gripped the halberd-shaped treasure spirit above his head. At this moment, his stance was like that of a war deity, imposing and towering. Compared to before, he was a changed man. Unable to help himself, Yang Yuanzi turned to Guang Chushan and asked, "The mysterious origin treasure spirit has mysterious light, and the earth origin spirit treasure can devour nature's spiritual energy. Then, what rank should a treasure spirit that undergoes nirvana rebirth, causing other life spirit treasures to fear, belong to?" He had a hunch, but he dared not say it aloud. Guang Chushan stared intently at Fang Wang's posture and uttered two words, "Heaven Yuan." Zhou Xingxi was stupefied, standing in place without noticing the murderous gaze Yang Yuanzi directed at him. Meanwhile, all the flames around Fang Wang poured into the Heavenly Palace halberd, revealing his figure. The 10-foot-long Heavenly Palace halberd in his hands appeared incredibly formidable. Fang Wang firmly planted the halberd's tail into the bottom of the pool, and a terrifying wave of energy swept out, forcing Guang Chushan to take action again. This time, even Xiuan Hall trembled. Sect leader, what is the rank of my treasure spirit? Fang Wang looked at Guang Chushan and asked, holding back his excitement. He could clearly feel the spiritual power within him boiling and transforming. Spiritual refinement realm. Guang Chushan, while staring at the heavenly palace halberd, said, above the earth origin spirit treasure, the exact rank, I do not know, for I have never seen a heaven yuan spirit treasure. His gaze then shifted sideways to Zhou Xingxi. Sensing the threat, Zhou Xingxi took 2 steps back and hastily said, I will never speak of this. The superior mysterious origin treasure spirit should have been regarded as a precious treasure by the Great Abyss Gate, which was why Guang Chushan allowed Zhou Xingxi to stay and enjoy the show. In his opinion, Fang Wang being able to create an Earth origin spirit treasure was already wishful thinking. Even if he succeeded, it would be a good opportunity for these 2 talents to know each other, support each other, and grow together. But as Fang Wang's treasure spirit surpassed the Earth origin spirit treasure, everything changed. The superior mysterious origin treasure spirit was simply not worth mentioning in front of the Heaven Yuan spirit treasure. Guang Chushan realized one thing: once Fang Wang's treasure spirit became known, the other 8 major sects would certainly find every possible means to eliminate Fang Wang, so he could not let this news spread. His gaze towards Zhou Xing. She became even colder, while Yang Yuanzi did not hide his killing intent. Facing the murderous intent of 2 sect powerhouses, Zhou Xingxi was so scared that he knelt down, begging for mercy. Sect leader, I definitely won't speak of this, truly. You must believe me. After all, I am also a possessor of the superior mysterious origin treasure spirit. In the future, I will surely make significant contributions to the Great Abyss Gate. By the end of his plea, his forehead was pressed tightly against the ground. He understood that he couldn't escape and could only beg for mercy. Yang Yuanzi looked at Guang Chushan and said coldly, Sect leader, we cannot afford any slightest uncertainty in this matter. If you're reluctant to act, let me do it. Guang Chushan remained silent. Yang Yuanzi raised his right hand, condensing a streak of sword qi on his palm. Seeing this, Fang Wang, who held the heavenly palace halberd, asked, is there no way to control him? To prevent him from speaking of what he's seen and heard today? He wasn't so kind-hearted. His own life being at stake, he had no interest in asking Guang Chushan and Yang Yuanzi to spare Zhou Xingxi. If Zhou Xingxi could be controlled, then he could be allowed to live. If not, then murder was the only option. The Heaven Yuan spirit treasure thrilled Fang Wang beyond his expectations. However, joy was soon followed by endless worries. The Earth origin spirit treasure alone was enough to propel the Great Abyss Gate to new heights, let alone another Heaven Yuan spirit treasure. Most importantly, Guang Chushan was still unsure of the specific grade of his heavenly palace halberd. At that moment, Fang Wang was even worried that Guang Chushan and Yang Yuanzi might harbor malicious intentions. After hearing Fang Wang's words, Yang Yuanzi glanced at Guang Chushan. Guang Chushan took a deep breath and said, the Heaven Yuan spirit treasure is of great importance and must be handled with caution. Nonetheless, the Great Abyss Gate is not the demonic path. Let's do as Fang Wang suggests. Upon hearing this, Yang Yuanzi couldn't help but shake his head, thinking Guang Chushan was too merciful. Then Yang Yuanzi stepped forward, dissipating the sword qi in his hand. He pulled out a small bottle from his storage bag, squatted in front of Zhou Xingxi, grabbed his jaw with his left hand, pried his mouth open, and poured the contents of the small bottle into it. Throughout the process, Zhou Xingxi didn't show the slightest resistance, knowing this was his only chance for survival. He even cast a grateful look towards Fang Wang. Fang Wang, however, saw that the contents of the small bottle were deep red insects, making his skin crawl. This is the myriad poison autumn spring insect, incurable by any medicine. When the person dies, the insect perishes. They are born tamed, and whenever someone recites the incantation in front of the one who has ingested the insect, the myriad poison autumn spring insect will self-destruct, spreading the poison throughout the body and causing the person to die violently within 3 breaths. Yang Yuanzi stood up, looking down on Zhou Xingxi as he spoke, his face indifferent as if he were looking at a crawly insect. Afterward, he transmitted the incantation to Fang Wang secretly. Fang Wang's expression remained calm, but inside he felt it strange that his master did not seem like a member of the righteous sects at all, keeping such a poisonous creature. Turning to face Fang Wang, Guang Chushan said, "The matter of the Heaven Yuan spirit treasure must be kept secret. From now on, I won't show you any special favor publicly and will treat you as an ordinary disciple. However, you can come to me with any issue at any time, and I will help. You resolve them in private. I assure you, you will be the next sect leader of the Great Abyss Gate." Regardless of character or background, the position of sect leader was now promised to Fang Wang. At that moment, Fang Wang truly understood the significance of the Heaven Yuan spirit treasure, and he quickly replied, "Whether I become the sect leader is irrelevant to me. Having joined the Great Abyss Gate, I will forever be a disciple, ready to go through fire and water for the sect." Fancy words, who can't say them? At least he needed to handle the current situation better to avoid arousing Guang Chushan's suspicion. Only the 4 of us can be privy to this matter. Fang Wang, you also cannot tell your clan. The Heaven Yuan spirit treasure is indeed powerful, but you have not yet grown. You must stay low-key. From now on, your life spirit treasure will be set as the superior mysterious origin treasure spirit, Guang Chushan said, glancing at Zhou Xingxi, who had just gotten up, and spoke firmly. "Zhou Xingxi, from now on, your duty will be to protect Fang Wang. You shall follow his commands, and your treatment will be the same as that of a chief disciple of a single meridian." Hearing that, Zhou Xingxi hurriedly expressed his thanks to Guang Chushan, then thanked Fang Wang again. Yang Yuanzi followed up, saying, "Sect leader, let me take Fang Wang away first. Many people have arrived outside, and they must not see Fang Wang." Guang Chushan nodded, and then Yang Yuanzi retrieved another set of clothes from his storage bag and threw them to Fang Wang. Fang Wang quickly dressed and followed Yang Yuanzi's footsteps. There was actually a tunnel leading underground inside Xiuan Hall. Along the way, Fang Wang was feeling the Heavenly Palace halberd inside his body. Inside him, the Heavenly Palace halberd occupied an independent space above the dantian. It was pitch black, and he couldn't tell whether it was an extra-dimensional space or a soul space. However, he could feel the presence of the Heavenly Palace halberd and could summon it at any time. But there was one thing that puzzled him. The space occupied by the Heavenly Palace halberd was very small compared to the entire dark space, and it wasn't in the central position. Could there be a second life spirit treasure? The tunnel was quiet, and just as Fang Wang was curious and confused, Yang Yuanzi's voice came from ahead. "Fang Wang, remember, you can't fully trust anyone, including the sect leader, and even your master." Fang Wang looked up, watching Yang Yuanzi's back, unsure of how to respond. People's hearts ultimately change. The sect leader is willing to train you as the next leader because he hasn't reached his limit. When he faces his limit, what kind of evil thoughts he might have, even your master can't imagine. In the cultivation world, seizing treasures and seizing bodies are not uncommon. Not to hide this from you, your master has once had such evil thoughts. Yang Yuanzi's tone was ghostly, making it impossible to gauge what he was thinking. Fang Wang spoke, "Thank you for the reminder, master. Your disciple will keep it in mind. I will never forget your kindness and will repay you in the future." "Is that so?" Yang Yuanzi chuckled without ever turning back or stopping his stride. For the rest of the journey, he remained silent, and Fang Wang grew anxious, fearing a sudden attack. Fortunately, their trip passed without incident, and upon reaching the cave entrance, Yang Yuanzi told him to go back to his dwelling first. Fang Wang flew away on his sword, and along the way, he noticed many disciples gathered at various peaks, seemingly discussing something. Since his induction, it was the first time he had seen such a lively scene. Could it be related to the commotion caused by the heavenly palace halberd? Fang Wang's heart tensed, and he quickened his pace. Upon returning to the third vein, he landed at the entrance of his dwelling and saw Ji Yu Li standing at her entrance, gazing into the distance. Ji Yu Li turned to face Fang Wang and asked, "Brother Fang, where have you returned from?" Fang Wang replied, "I went to the Daofa Pavilion. Something seems to have happened at the Tai Yuan sect. If Miss Ji Yu is interested, you could talk with the other disciples." With that, he entered his dwelling. Ji Yu Li's face betrayed her suspicion, but she didn't think too much about it. She was full of confusion about what could have happened to make her life spirit treasure uncontrollable. After closing the door of his dwelling, Fang Wang went straight to the open space inside and summoned the heavenly palace halberd, admiring his life spirit treasure the more he looked at it. Holding the heavenly palace halberd, he felt an overwhelming sense of power. No wonder spiritual refinement was so crucial for cultivators. Then, he retracted the heavenly palace halberd and sat cross-legged on his white jade bed to consolidate his cultivation. He had reached the first layer of the soul sculpting realm, which was also divided into 9 layers. He planned to practice calmly and wait for the commotion to pass. The emergence of the heavenly palace halberd had changed Fang Wang's approach. He could no longer focus solely on swordsmanship and would have to learn the arts of using long weapons. The Jinghong divine sword art wasn't a waste. After all, it didn't require a sword. He resolved not to use the heavenly palace halberd casually while in the Tai Yuan sect and felt that the Jinghong divine sword art should be enough to sweep through competitors of the same realm. Pretending to be a sword cultivator. And so, 2 months hurried by. After entering the soul sculpting realm, Fang Wang's progress in cultivation began to slow down. Even with the great perfection Solaris scripture, he barely managed to break through to the second layer after 2 months. Until this day, Fang Hanyu came to visit Fang Wang, interrupting his life of cultivation. After inviting Fang Hanyu into his dwelling, the brothers exchanged pleasantries. Fang Hanyu brought up the recent significant events in the Tai Yuan sect. All cultivators in the soul sculpting realm had experienced their life spirit treasures becoming uncontrollable at the same time, leading to a speculation circulating within the sect. That was the birth of a supreme treasure. Upon hearing such speculation, Fang Wang breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Before he was strong enough, he dared not expose the rank of his life spirit treasure. "Fang Wang, I visited you today because I have something." Fang Hanyu hesitated. Fang Wang rolled his eyes and replied irritably, "I can't stand your dithering. Since you're already here, you can't possibly hold it in, can you? Just say it. We are brothers, after all." "Well, not blood brothers, so don't ask for too much." Relieved, Fang Hanyu said, "I plan to go out for training. Zhou Shui instructed me to look after the other clan members and to trouble you as little as possible. But if I stay within the Tai Yuan sect, it's hard to advance by leaps and bounds, considering I'm just an inner sect disciple. I want to seek out opportunities." "Is that all? Do you have a plan?" Fang Wang asked. "Each person has their destiny. The other Fang family disciples didn't have his talent or privilege. Seeking their fortunes was the right thing to do." Fang Hanyu nodded and said, "A senior sister from the second vein has obtained a map of a secret realm that is said to contain a great cultivator's remains. 23 disciples from my vein have decided to go together, and I don't want to miss out." Fang Wang considered for a moment, then nodded, "Go then, I'll take care of the other clan members." Fang Hanyu showed his gratitude with a smile, quickly thanked him, and after a short chat, he took his leave since there was no more to discuss. No sooner had he left than another visitor arrived at Fang Wang's doorstep. Zhou Xingxi. With the spell to kill Zhou Xingxi in hand, Fang Wang naturally wasn't afraid of him, so he invited him into his dwelling. Though Zhou Xingxi wore the Dao robe of a Tai Yuan sect disciple, he kept his bamboo hat on, looking travel-worn. He sat down at the stone table and took out 2 jade slips from inside his chest, These are the superior spell arts entrusted to me by the sect leader for you. They suit your treasure spirit and must not be disclosed to others. Thanks for watching.